The commander's daughter and I have loathed each other since we were children. She mocked me, calling me the softest, most pampered brat in the military compound. Whoever marries you is a dog. She would sneer. I retorted that she was the compound's greatest she-demon, only fit for a dog's gaze. But then when we turned 18, we were the only two left in the compound who were considered a perfect match, with our parents playing matchmaker. We were wed. On our wedding night, while drying her hair, she asked if I even knew the first thing about intimacy. Surprisingly, we were perfectly compatible. For the next 3 years, that long-legged, stunning woman would always cling to me, coquettishly begging for mercy. We became the most affectionate couple in the entire compound. Until that one time she left for a mission far away. Her twin sister Bai Rushu returned carrying a blood-stained badge. Choking back tears, she spoke in a raspy voice. Fang Yuan Ningbing. She's not coming back. I collapsed on the spot. After I regained consciousness, I was desperate, driven mad by the need to find her, but my father-in-law held me tight, preventing me from leaving. After that I tried to end it with sleeping pills. I slit my wrists. I jumped into the river. 3 times I sought death, and 3 times I was brought back. Everyone sighed, saying Regiment Commander Bai and Fang Yuan's love was truly profound. Yes, it truly was beautiful. Until 3 months after the day she supposedly died, I finally learned that the person who died wasn't her at all. After my 3rd suicide attempt, on the night I was saved, pale and ghost-like, I went to my wife's family home. I wanted to find my father-in-law, to recover a few of Bai Ningbing's belongings, to soothe the ache of my longing. But I accidentally overheard whispered voices from the inner room. Ningbing, how much longer do you plan on hiding this? Fang Yuan has attempted suicide 3 times because of you. My fingernails dug sharply into my palms. Why was Bai Rushu's father calling that person Bai Ningbing? He called her Ningbing. Please wait just a bit longer. The voice clearly belonged to Bai Rushu, but that gentle tone was identical to Bai Ningbing's. Before she died, my sister asked me to look after my brother-in-law. Brother-in-law has lived a pampered life since childhood. If he hears the terrible news about her now, he surely won't be able to go on. I can only use her identity to bear a child for my brother-in-law, with that child as his anchor. Only then can brother-in-law keep living. The blood in my veins turned to ice instantly. I could hardly believe my own ears. So the one who died was Bai Rushu, not Bai Ningbing. My wife is still alive, but she is assuming her sister's identity, sharing a bed with Song Jinian every day in the house next door. Then what about Fang Yuan? Her father's voice became increasingly urgent. You sleep in Jinian's room every single night. Have you never thought about Fang Yuan's feelings? He is stronger than my brother-in-law. That sentence was a dagger plunged straight into my heart. I stumbled backward, accidentally knocking over a broom leaning against the wall. Silence fell abruptly within the room. I turned and fled immediately. As I ran, I felt a sharp sting in my palm. Opening my hand to look, I realized the badge in my hand. Because I had gripped it so tightly, it had sliced through my skin. For the past 3 months, I clutched this badge night and day, even as I slept. Countless times I woke up sobbing from my dreams. But now everything has suddenly become so ridiculous. It turns out my wife isn't dead. She simply felt pity for her brother-in-law, so she chose to let me believe she had perished. 5 years ago, Bai Ningbing and I met for the first time, at a military district gala. She was a cold, distant regiment commander. Many sought her hand, and I had no shortage of admirers either. But that night she stood below the stage, her radiant eyes fixed intently on me. After I finished singing a song of unity, she strode onto the stage. Before everyone she draped her heavy military overcoat over my shoulders. She said, Comrade Fang Yuan, the wind is strong. Don't catch a cold. I wore her coat, feeling the warmth of that passionate love. Afterward she began to pursue me. Every time she went on a mission, she'd take a detour just to visit me at the art troupe. I finally agreed to date her. That day she suddenly leapt into my arms. She said, Fang Yuan, in this life I, Bai Ningbing, only want you. After we married, people gossiped even more about how Regiment Commander Bai doted on her husband, loving him to the very marrow of her bones. I once deluded myself into thinking she loved me more than life itself. But what now? To care for her brother-in-law, she faked her own death and stole her sister's life, sharing a life and a bed with him, even preparing to bear his child, while I was like a fool weeping over her memory, dying 1,000 deaths of grief for her. Did she ever think that I could feel pain too? My mind is a blur. When I returned home, matchmaker Liu arrived again. Fang Yuan, in half a month Regiment Commander Su is transferring to the island. This is the 7th time she's asked me to come. She said if you still don't agree, then she will never return in this lifetime. Su Baizhao was Bai Ningbing's comrade. She has sought my hand time and time again. I rejected her the previous 6 times, because I once believed I could only ever love Bai Ningbing. But now I look up and say calmly, fine. I'll marry her. Matchmaker Liu was stunned. Are you serious? I am. I smiled. Please tell Su Baizhao. In half a month I will marry her. I will go to the island to live with her. The curtain was suddenly pulled back. Bai Ningbing stood at the door. Her expression was grim. Brother-in-law, who exactly are you planning to marry? I looked at her. suddenly finding it hilarious. Ru Shu. Sister-in-law, this is my business. Her words were directed at the matchmaker, but her hand gripped my wrist tightly, so hard it made me wince. My brother-in-law already has me to care for him. He doesn't need to marry anyone else. Besides, he loved Ningbing so much, how could he possibly agree to this? Don't come here again. Or don't blame me for being rude and throwing you out. Matchmaker Lu was visibly surprised, but Fang Yuan already agreed. Her words were cut short. I hurriedly grabbed her arm. Auntie, didn't you say you were heading to the department store? You should go quickly. It'll be closing soon if you don't hurry. Matchmaker Lu was indeed distracted. She hurriedly excused herself and left. Seeing that the matchmaker was gone, Bai Ningbing finally breathed a sigh of relief. She took a half step toward me. Brother-in-law, even though Ningbing is gone, rest assured we'll take good care of you. In the future, if any more of those matchmakers show up, just send them away immediately. At this very moment, I only felt it was absurd. She's lying to me, spending her nights in our brother-in-law's room. Yet she's afraid he'll leave, afraid he'll marry someone else. What kind of twisted logic is this? But I didn't expose her. I just nodded silently. After all, in half a month they'll be remarried. Leaving this place forever, she won't be able to control me anymore. That night while I was packing, the sound of a creaking bed came from the neighbor's house. In the past, hearing this, I simply thought they were a very passionate couple. Right at that moment, a piercing scream tore through the night sky. When I rushed outside, I saw Song Jinian supporting Bai Ningbing as they hurried out. Under the moonlight, I stood frozen in the crowd, feeling a bone-chilling cold. I was about to turn away when Aunt Li grabbed me firmly. Fang Yuan, you're the brother-in-law. You should go and see what's happening. Fearful of gossip, I had to throw on a coat and hurry to the hospital. The pungent smell of disinfectant in the hallway made my eyes sting. The man was pacing back and forth anxiously. Seeing me, he clearly froze for a second. Why are you here? I let out a faint smirk. As the brother-in-law, I should come and check. The surgery door suddenly swung open. The doctor stepped out. Rest assured, comrade, your wife is fine. She's just pregnant. I stood frozen in the middle of the hospital hallway. My ears were ringing. The doctor's words, she's pregnant, struck me like a heavy blow to the head. I instinctively looked toward Bai Ningbing on the hospital bed. I saw that she was stunned at first too, but then her eyes lit up with a wild, frantic joy. This is wonderful. Everything is finally going back to how it should be. Of course, I understood exactly what she meant. She's pregnant. She can finally shed the identity of Bai Ru Shu to return to my side. But I don't want her anymore. However, the patient is slightly anemic. She needs a blood transfusion. The doctor's words broke my train of thought. Song Jinian immediately rolled up his sleeves. But the doctor stopped him. Your blood type isn't a match. We need type B. Fang Yuan is type B. His eyes turned toward me. After a moment's hesitation, he approached me. Fang Yuan, my wife is pregnant. This child is what we've both been longing for. He paused for a second. Could you donate some blood for her? Once the baby is born, my wife and I will surely make it up to you. Make it up to me. I sneered inwardly. He certainly owes me a lot of blood. I could consider this a down payment on that debt. But forget it, there's no need. I answered calmly. Then I turned and followed the nurse to the donation room. As the needle pierced my vein, I suddenly remembered my high fever during our first year of marriage. Bai Ningbing stayed awake for several nights straight, caring for me just like this day. The needle for drawing blood. She had held my hand tight and said, "Don't be afraid, your wife is here." Now my blood is flowing into her body, to nourish the child of her and another man. For the next few days I rested at home. Through the window I witnessed their daily displays of affection. Song Jinian carried a thermos back and forth between home and hospital every day. One day it was stewed chicken soup. The next it was poached eggs and ginger and brown sugar. The day Bai Ningbing was discharged, the entire complex was filled with the sweet scent of milk candy. Bai Ningbing carried a jar of wedding candy, handing it out to every household. Her eyes, which were usually so cold, now radiated an undeniable happiness. Impregnant. Please have some celebratory candy. Congratulations. Congratulations. Finally the child you've been waiting for. She laughed and thanked them all. Every feature of her face beamed with the joy of an expectant mother. Finally she approached me. The hand offering me the candy hesitated slightly. Brother-in-law. Congratulate your sister-in-law. I took the candy, offering a polite measured smile. I wish your family of 3 perfect happiness. Bai Ningbing's brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. The blessing was too perfect, too formal. So formal that it made her feel suddenly uneasy. Ever since the day Bai Ningbing was killed, I had cried every day begging to leave. When had I ever been this composed? But before she could think further, Song Jinian stepped up. He put his arm around her waist and spoke. Ru Shu, didn't we plan to take Fang Yuan out to dinner? To thank me for donating blood? Song Jinian insisted on treating me. I refused him over and over again. But in the end I was practically dragged into the car. At the state-owned restaurant, the waiter greeted us warmly. Please come inside, the 3 of you. The waiter's gaze flickered between Bai Ningbing and Song Jinian. You two make such a beautiful couple. Then he looked at me. And this must be your younger brother. Bai Ningbing froze for a moment. Before she could even speak, she heard me reply in a gentle voice. That's right, I'm her younger brother. Those words were like a blade piercing her heart. Looking down at her slightly protruding stomach. In the end she didn't correct him. When ordering, he rattled off a list of dishes from memory. No cilantro. Light on the oil and salt. The spicy and sour dishes were all Song Jinian's favorites. Only when the waiter asked what the younger brother wanted, did she suddenly remember something. Turning her head toward me. Anything is fine for me. I bowed my head and took a sip of tea. The rising steam blurred and covered my face. After the food was served, I listlessly picked at my rice grain by grain, until my throat suddenly tightened. I realized with horror that these glutinous rice balls were filled with black sesame. I am severely allergic to sesame. Bai Ningbing used to remember everything I had to avoid. Even at the mess hall she would specifically demand no sesame for me. Yet now she has ordered a whole plate of them, the rice balls. Fang Yuan. Song Jinian noticed I didn't look right. What's wrong with you? Bai Ningbing finally looked up and saw my flushed cheeks. She suddenly bolted upright. Did you eat sesame? Breathing became harder and harder. My vision started to go dark. Through the haze, I saw Bai Ningbing rush toward me, but midway she was halted by Song Jinian's pained groans. My head. It hurt so much. Time seemed to stand still in that instant. I saw Bai Ningbing freeze where she stood. Her gaze was torn between me and Song Jinian, and in the end she chose Song Jinian. Before leaving she hurriedly told the waiter, "Please take my younger brother to the hospital." The waiter's panicked cries faded further and further away. And then my consciousness slowly slipped away. I blacked out completely. The smell of disinfectant stung my eyes. Opening my eyes I saw the nurse changing the IV drip. "Comrade, are you awake?" The nurse sighed in relief. "It's a good thing the restaurant staff brought you in time. Anaphylactic shock can be life-threatening." I wanted to say something, but I realized my throat was burning like fire. Bai Ningbing hadn't hesitated for a second. The image of her back as she took Song Jinian away haunted my mind. I closed my eyes tightly. Tears rolled from the corners of my eyes into my hair. During my 3-day stay, I lay solitary and abandoned in that hospital bed. The allergic hives made my whole body itch. My throat was so swollen I couldn't even swallow a drop of water. At my most miserable moment, I heard the nurses whispering outside the door. "Look at room 308. That man just caught a bit of a chill. He's only got a migraine, yet his wife is in such a frantic state. Unlike the patient in room 302, such a severe allergy. And his wife hasn't even come once. It's like she's already dead." I buried my face deep into the pillow. That's right, my wife died long ago. She died on that mission. She died the moment she chose to be another man's wife. She died the moment she chose to be another man's wife. The day I was discharged the sun was shining beautifully. I had just stepped out of the hospital gates, when I suddenly spotted a familiar army green jeep. The next second, Song Jinian walked out from the hospital entrance. The car door swung open with a thud. Bai Ningbing took 3 quick steps, and rushed over in 2 strides. Supporting him carefully slow down. "The doctor said you need more rest." Her voice was so gentle it could practically melt. Just like the way she used to comfort me years ago. I stood motionless watching the jeep drive away. Exhaust fumes drifted over my pale face. She didn't even spare me a single glance. The afternoon wind brought a slight chill. I pushed open my front door. From a distance I saw a slender figure, standing before my house. Bai Ningbing was laden with all sorts of tonic gifts. Several mesh bags sat at her feet, filled with malted milk powder, brown sugar and canned goods. Fang Yuan. She stepped closer. "Is your allergy better now?" How ironic. Ignoring me during the day like I don't exist. Then running here when alone to play the devoted lover. "Thank you for your concern, sister-in-law. I'm much better now." I sidestepped her intending to open the door. Bai Ningbing grabbed my wrist. "Take these to nourish your body. No need Ru's shoe." Something's happened. Song Jinian suddenly burst into the courtyard. His face was drenched in tears. "I've been reported for speculating on quotas for youth returning to the city." I felt Bai Ningbing's hand noticeably freeze. "What did you say?" Her voice suddenly turned icy. Song Jinian's eyes were bloodshot. "I only wanted to earn a little extra money. To buy clothes for our future child. Now the enforcement squad is coming to arrest me. I give you my entire monthly allowance. And you still went and did something like that." Song Jinian pulled at her sleeve, stamping his feet frantically. "What do we do now? You're pregnant now. I can't go to prison." The courtyard gate was suddenly kicked open. "Comrade Song Jinian, you've been accused of speculating on return quotas. Please come with us." The atmosphere instantly grew stagnant. Bai Ningbing was silent for a long time. Then she spoke up unexpectedly. It wasn't him. Every eye turned toward Bai Ningbing. The space was quiet for several seconds. She emphasized every single word. "I know about this. It wasn't Jinian. The one who did it was Fang Yuan." The world seemed to stop. "What did you say?" My voice trembled violently. "Say that again. Who was it?" She avoided my gaze. Her eyes were shifty and uncertain. "It was Fang Yuan. I shook, unable to find my voice. As I was about to speak, the enforcement squad grabbed me, twisting my arms behind my back. We have witness confirmation. You're coming with us for investigation. As I was shoved onto the truck, I stared intently at Bai Ningbing, never breaking eye contact. She stood protectively in front of Song Jinian. Her uniform was still crisp and tidy, but she was no longer the woman in my memories, the woman who once risked her life to protect me during that earthquake. In that dark room, no one cared for my justifications. Regiment Commander Bai personally confirmed it. How could it be a lie? The squad leader slammed a pen down in front of me. Confess, after 3 days without a single scrap of food or a drop of water, I was sent to the coal mines for labor reform. The mine was dark, freezing, and damp. I bent my back carrying heavy loads of coal. Every step felt like walking on a bed of thorns. Suddenly a world-shattering explosion echoed through the cave. A cave in. Run! Before I could even react, I was buried by the collapsing coal, my entire lower body. Amidst the heart-wrenching pain, I heard someone screaming my name in agony. Feng Yuan, hold on. Is this a hallucination? The woman who abandoned me was now frantically digging through the coal with her bare hands. I'm sorry, Bai Ningbing. When she managed to pull me out, her voice was pitifully shaky. She kept calling my name incessantly. My sister is dead now. Brother-in-law is all alone. He could endure this kind of suffering. I had no choice but to shift all the blame onto you. Feng Yuan, I was truly desperate. You hurt once, but my heart hurts 10 times more. Once my child is born, I will definitely bring you home. Please wake up. Please, I beg you, wake up. I can't live without you. I suddenly felt like laughing. She's always like this, slapping me then giving me a piece of candy. My final sensation before blacking out was Bai Ningbing. Hot tears falling steadily onto my face. When I regained consciousness again, the hospital room was eerily silent. Bai Ningbing collapsed by the bedside and fell asleep. I had just barely moved. He immediately woke up with a start. Feng Yuan. She suddenly pulled me into a tight embrace. Her eyes were bloodshot. She began to kiss my lips passionately. Thank goodness. You're awake. Stop this. I used every ounce of my strength to push her away. What do you think you're doing? Bai Ningbing suddenly let go. I staggered back 2 steps. She recoiled as if burned and apologized. Her gaze was dark and heavy. Her voice was hoarse. Jinian hasn't been well these past few days, so he had to be hospitalized. I entered the wrong room and mistook you for someone else. She turned and walked away. Her retreating figure looked frantic as if she were fleeing. I reached up to wipe away the lingering warmth on my lips. It felt incredibly ironic. She could even lie convincingly. It's broad daylight right now. How could she possibly enter the wrong room and mistake me for another person? I stayed in the hospital for a few days before being discharged. My discharge day happened to be the camp's open day. As soon as I stepped into the military family housing area, I was immediately surrounded by enthusiastic military wives. Oh Feng Yuan, it's been a while since Ningbing passed away. Being alone must be so lonely for you. It's time for you to move on. Let me introduce you to someone wonderful. She's the youngest daughter of Chief of Staff Zhang, a military academy graduate as beautiful as a hibiscus. I opened my mouth to speak. Before I could say a word, to tell them I had already accepted Su Baizu's proposal, I was pushed in front of a woman in military uniform. Look here, Comrade Chu works at the Research Institute. The family has already prepared the dowry. Her monthly salary is a whole 78 yuan. The woman adjusted her glasses. She was just about to speak, when a dark figure suddenly lunged forward. A single punch sent her sprawling to the ground. Everyone present was stunned into silence. Looked up and met a pair of bloodshot eyes. 3 buttons on Bai Ningbing's military jacket were torn open. Her chest was heaving violently. I appreciate your kindness, ladies, she growled through gritted teeth. Her voice was as cold as ice. I will take care of my brother-in-law myself. There's no need for anyone to worry. Having said that, she grabbed my arm and dragged me straight out. Not until we were a long distance away did I violently shake her hand off. Bai Rushu. I deliberately emphasized the name. You're the one who's actually meddling in other people's business. Bai Ningbing's pupils constricted. After all, you and I have no relationship whatsoever. I straightened my wrinkled sleeve. Whom I go on a blind date with, or whom I choose to marry is my own business. I turned around to leave, when I heard a loud thud behind me. Bai Ningbing punched the tree trunk hard, but I kept walking without even turning my head. Late at night, I was awakened by a strange noise. Before I could turn on the light, a hot body pressed down on top of me. The pungent smell of alcohol mixed with a familiar pine scent hit my nose. Bai Ningbing's lips crushed mine brutally. She was clearly so drunk she had lost all reason. The kiss was both aggressive and desperate. I tried my best to push her away, but a drunk woman possesses incredible strength. Don't go. Bai Ningbing's voice was pitifully hoarse. Hot tears fell onto my face. Don't go on blind dates with anyone else. I'm begging you. My whole body trembled. Whether from anger or humiliation, I didn't know. Bai Ningbing, you're Song Jinian's wife now. I'm not her. She pressed her forehead against mine in pain. Just wait a little longer. It's almost time. Get out. I suddenly brought my knee up. Bai Ningbing let out a grunt and tumbled off the bed. The noise disturbed the next room. Song Jinian. He pushed open the door and entered. What's going on? The lights flickered on. I turned my face away. I used my left hand to cover my bitten lip. Rushu is too drunk and walked into the wrong room. Brother-in-law, please take her back. Song Jinian's gaze fixed on my bleeding lip. His fingernails dug deep into his palms, but he said nothing. He simply helped Bai Ningbing up calmly. Rushu, let's go back to our room. Bai Ningbing staggered as she was pulled away, but she still looked back at me once from the doorway. I closed the door and slowly slid down. I sat flat on the floor, the wound on my lip burned like fire. The pain in my already scarred heart was even worse. In the early dawn of the next day, the sound of a car engine echoed from the yard. I opened my eyes, listening to the sound of Bai Ningbing's car fading into the distance. Just as I was about to breathe a sigh of relief, the bedroom door was suddenly kicked open. A stinging slap landed on my face. It burned intensely. Song Jinian stood by the bed. His eyes were filled with malice. Fang Yuan, you're truly a despicable man. Your wife is dead, and now you're trying to seduce your sister-in-law. What nonsense are you talking about? I clutched my face. But in the next second I understood. What happened last night, how ridiculous it was. Bai Ningbing was clearly the one legally married to me. She was my rightful wife. And yet now our intimacy was being branded as an affair by another man. You've misunderstood. Last night she was the one. Shut up. Song Jinian suddenly swept the candle off the nightstand. Don't think just because you have some looks you can seduce another man's wife. Today I'll show you clearly who truly matters in her heart. The fire flared up on the curtains. Then it quickly began to spread. You're insane. I jumped off the bed intending to run out. But Song Jinian grabbed my wrist tightly. What's the rush? Song Jinian sneered. Did you think I'd die with you? He leaned in close to my ear. His voice was sinister. Before coming here I already had someone call the militia. Guess who shall save first? The thick smoke stung my eyes and tears streamed down my face. I struggled desperately. But then I heard hurried footsteps outside the door. Jinian. Fang Yuan. The moment Bai Ningbing charged into the fire, I suddenly remembered our wedding night years ago. She held me and said, Fang Yuan, always remember, no matter what the circumstances, you will always be my first priority. But in reality she didn't even spare me a single glance. Instead she rushed straight to get Song Jinian out. Bai Ningbing. I reached out, but a falling beam blocked my path. The heat scorched my skin. As I fell, I seemed to see the Bai Ningbing of that year again, standing backstage at the art troupe, smiling as she pressed a milk candy into my hand. Fang Yuan. Amidst the pungent smell of antiseptic, I opened my eyes with difficulty. Bai Ningbing was sitting by the bedside. Deep circles of exhaustion were etched under her eyes. You just finished skin graft surgery. Don't move around too much. She reached out to help me, but I pulled away. Skin graft. My voice was rasping, unable to believe what I had just heard. Bai Ningbing. Her eyebrows furrowed. You set the fire and almost killed Jinian. Now it's just a small skin graft. Do you really need to be this agitated? I suddenly burst out laughing until tears spilled out. He said I set the fire. He said that, and you just believed him. If not, then what? Bai Ningbing tiredly rubbed her temples. I am his wife. If I don't believe him, whom should I believe? The words husband and wife were like a knife stabbing my heart. I yanked the IV needle out of the back of my hand. Then what are you still doing here? Get out of here. The four to the floor, shattering into pieces. Bai Ningbing grabbed my hand firmly. Brother-in-law, calm down. I know you've suffered some grievances, but just wait 10 more months. Wait until the baby is born. Get out. I grabbed the pillow and threw it hard at her. I never want to see you again. The pillow hit her shoulder, light as a feather. It had no weight behind it. Bai Ningbing stood there in silence. Her gaze darkened slightly. Then she finally turned around and left. After the door clicked shut, I noticed a box of milk candies on the nightstand. Exactly the kind I loved most. I grabbed the box and hurled it against the wall. The candies scattered all over the floor, just like my heart broken into 100 pieces. On the day of my discharge, the bright sunlight stung my eyes. I had just reached the entrance of the housing area when I saw the matchmaker standing on tiptoe waving at me. Fang Yuan, finally I've caught you. Aunt Lu, I said, lightly brushing away a stray lock of hair. The burn on my right arm was still throbbing. Everything has been arranged on Regiment Commander Su's side. The boat departs early tomorrow morning. Aunt Lu lowered her voice. She pulled a boat ticket from her pocket. She insisted that you shouldn't bring too much luggage. Everything is already prepared for you on that remote island. I quickly pulled a red envelope from my pocket and handed it to her. Thank you for your hard work in coming all this way. Oh goodness. Regiment Commander Su already gave me money. She said if you were short on cash, this is a separate gift from me. I pressed the red envelope into Aunt Lia's hand. The corners of my lips curled into a faint smile, a toast to my new life. Aunt Lu was stunned. Then she immediately beamed with a bright smile. That's right, it's worth celebrating. Your wife is gone. Forget the past and look to the future. That's the best way, in everyone's eyes. Bai Ningbing had passed away long ago. Died during that mission. Died along with that blood-stained badge. Only I knew she was very much alive, living happily in the arms of another man. I was just about to speak, when the yard gate was kicked open with a loud crash. Bai Ningbing stood there, her face dark. Standing right at the entrance. Her military uniform was soaked with sweat. Clearly she had rushed back here in a hurry. I already said no more introducing potential partners to Fang Yuan. She snatched it. She grabbed the red envelope out of Aunt Leah's hand. I will take good care of him. He won't agree to remarry anyway. Aunt Lu was frightened into a tremble, but I spoke up. Auntie, please go home first. I gently interrupted her. I gave Aunt Lu a meaningful look. Aunt Lu scrambled out in a panic. She accidentally bumped into Song Jinian as he was coming in. Song Jinian looked up and saw Bai Ningbing's protective stance over me. His eyes immediately grew dark. When the silent night fell, I was packing my bags, when the room door was suddenly pushed open. Song Jinian sneered and said, "Wasn't last time suffering enough? You still dare to try and seduce Ru Shu?" I didn't even look up, just kept folding my clothes. "I'll be leaving tomorrow." Before I could finish my sentence, Song Jinian suddenly let out a cry and collapsed to the floor. He clutched his leg and screamed in simulated agony. Almost instantly, Bai Ningbing rushed in from outside. Jinian. She didn't give me a single look. She hurriedly helped Song Jinian up and took him out. I stood there in silence, listening to Song Jinian's wailing in the hallway. He pushed me. "Ru Shu, will my legs ever be able to dance again? What clumsy acting." I wanted to laugh, but instead I tasted the saltiness of tears on the corner of my mouth. Just as the sky began to brighten, I picked up my suitcase. Just as I reached the yard gate, I ran into Bai Ningbing, who had just rushed back. Dark circles were prominent under her eyes. Her eyes were bloodshot. "Why do you keep hurting Jinian over and over again?" She grabbed my wrist tightly. I stayed by his side and cared for him all night. His legs were meant for dancing. How do you expect him to live his life now? I shook her hand off. Then I silently walked out. Finally she noticed my suitcase. "How did you know I was going to kick you out? That you've already packed your bags like this?" I finally came to a halt, kicking me out. Her delicate face was etched with exhaustion. Yet she said coldly, "My pregnancy hasn't been stable lately. My husband and I don't want to see your face for a while. Go back to your own home and stay there for a bit." Having said that, before I could react, she snatched the suitcase. "I'll take you to the bus station." "No need." I pulled the suitcase back, but Bai Ningbing stubbornly followed behind, as if she were afraid that I wouldn't actually leave. She took me directly to the station. "Stay quietly at your house for now. After my child is born, I will come to get you. I won't walk you inside. Go buy your ticket and head in yourself. Jinian is still at the hospital waiting for me." After giving those few instructions, she immediately turned and hurried away. Standing before the ticket counter, I suddenly let out a laugh. "Bai Ningbing, go ahead and spend your whole life taking care of your Song Jinian." I watched the military jeep disappear into the morning mist, and I slowly turned around and walked in the opposite direction, toward the bus that would take me to the harbor. There Su Baizhou was waiting for me, and a completely new life. In the morning light, I looked back at the military housing area one last time. "Bai Ningbing, from this moment on we shall never meet again." As I stepped off the bus at the harbor with my luggage, I immediately recognized a woman in a gray coat. She was waving excitedly at me. Fang Yuan. Su Baizhou, seeing the one she had loved from afar for so long, her usually calm eyes suddenly lit up. Without regard for the piles of luggage beside her, she ran quickly toward me. She reached out intending to help me carry my bags. "Let me carry those for you." I wasn't the type of person to act pretentious. Besides, Su Baizhou and I were to become husband and wife, and spend the rest of our lives together. I also needed to get used to her presence, so I handed her the suitcase in my hand. A slight smile touched my lips. "Thank you," as my warm voice reached Su Baizhou's ears. Instantly, a deep flush like a ripe tomato spread and colored her entire ears red. She shyly scratched her head and gave a bashful smile. "Why are you being so formal? After all, we'll be family soon." Family. I suddenly paused in my tracks. I instinctively looked up at Su Baizhou standing beside me. This was the first time in years that I truly took a close look at the woman beside me. From the matchmaker's eager introductions to the gossip of old high school classmates, everything pointed to a single truth. Su Baizhou liked me very much. She liked me so much that for all those years, despite the many suitors her parents introduced for blind dates, she had adamantly refused them all. She liked me so much that over the years, even when bold and passionate men pursued her, she had tactfully declined every single one. Even during my darkest, most desperate years, she didn't care about the gossip or rumors, and had always waited for me with unwavering resolve, waiting until I finally gave my nod of approval. Even now as I was looking at her, she was also stealing glances at me, but the moment our eyes met, she would immediately pretend nothing had happened, and quickly avert her gaze, leaving only her flushing cheeks, to accidentally betray her true feelings. Such an endearing scene naturally made me burst into a chuckle, but then it was as if I suddenly remembered something. This time I was the one to speak first and call her name, with a very serious expression. Subaiju, I have a few words I want to say to you, since I've truly made up my mind to let go of Bai Ningbing, and forget everything that happened in the past, to draw a clear line between my past life and the people in it, and to live a good life with the woman before me from now on. Then I also need to make a clear commitment, to explain everything once and for all, to avoid any unnecessary misunderstandings in the future. Seeing me so serious, Subaijo also stopped smiling and listened intently. She looked at me with sincere eyes. Go ahead, she said. I took a deep breath. You probably already know all about my past, right? How could Subaijo not know? From the very first moment she fell in love with me. She had always silently watched my every move. That's why as soon as my wife passed away, she immediately had a matchmaker come to propose, so that everyone in the housing area would know I belonged to her, and that I could only ever be hers. Therefore Subaijo quickly nodded in agreement. I gave a small smile. But what I want to tell you is, that my wife isn't actually dead. Upon hearing that, Subaijo's mind went blank. She didn't even notice the items in her hands falling to the ground. Violent waves of emotion surged within her. What did it mean his wife was still alive? Did this mean her long-cherished wish was about to go up in smoke? She hadn't even had the chance to fully pour out her heart to me, about the deep feelings she had suppressed for so many years. Was she about to lose me all over again? While Subaijo was still lost in a whirlpool of messy thoughts, a warm hand suddenly took hers in a firm grip, and a soothing voice spoke in her ear. But please rest assured, I will never go back to her. Besides, the marital bond between us was truly severed the moment she was declared dead. What's more, she is now Song Jinian's wife. What? The shocking news kept coming, leaving Subaijo in a daze, unable to recover from the shock for a long while. So I told her everything about how Bai Ningbing impersonated her sister, how she planned to wait until the child was born before revealing her identity to me. I disclosed the entire situation to the woman before me. Even if one day she comes looking for me and wants me to return to her side, don't you worry about that, because there's no proof whatsoever that she is Bai Ningbing. Thinking back, I should thank Bai Ningbing for cutting off her own retreat. Back then, when I first heard the tragic news of Bai Ningbing's sacrifice, I had a complete mental breakdown. I kept mistakenly believing she, who was then my sister-in-law, was my wife. Perhaps to make me abandon that idea completely, or for some other reason, Bai Ningbing swore in front of everyone in the housing area that in this life she could only ever be Song Jinian's wife. Furthermore, she burned all the documents that could prove that she was indeed Bai Ningbing herself. She said it was to help me realize clearly that my wife had truly passed away forever. Therefore there's no one left now, and no evidence left to confirm her as Bai Ningbing. Now if she insists on trying to prove she's Bai Ningbing, I'll either be viewed as insane and thrown into a mental asylum, or if it were somehow proven true, no matter which path she takes, she won't have a good ending. And this has helped me completely sever all future worries. As soon as she heard that, the heart that was in Subaijo's throat finally settled back into place. In her memory, Bai Ningbing had always been a decisive woman, extremely careful and meticulous in everything she did. It was unbelievable that she would one day, for the sake of so-called love, but then again it was for the best. She will never be able to steal you from my hands again. From now on you will belong only to me. Thinking of that, the smile that had just vanished bloomed again on her lips, and she gently squeezed the hand I was holding. Subaijo, once I've decided to marry you, to build a home with you, it means I've discarded everything belonging to the past, and I won't look back for anyone ever again. However, I also hope that after we start our life together, you will never do anything to disappoint or hurt me. You're the one who understands my personality best. If you ever make that mistake, then I will leave you forever. Before I could even finish my sentence, Subaijo stepped forward and pulled me into a tight embrace. The scent of pure soap and the warmth of the sun radiating from her suddenly filled my senses. It made my whole body relax, bringing a sense of peace that was strangely comforting. Feng Yuan, I have loved you in silence for 10 long years. I have waited for you all this time. I know better than anyone just how difficult it was to earn your nod of approval, and I understand more than anyone else how much courage it took for you to finally break away from the past, to open your heart to a new love, and how much strength you had to find within yourself. The only thing I can do is love you with all my heart, to keep you warm, and never ever let you be hurt again. I know that with these words, you might not fully believe me yet, because for you, you have only just begun to accept me, to truly know me. I know your heart cannot be fully mine just yet, but we have so much time ahead of us, and I will prove to you just how deeply I love you. From beginning to end, Subaijo's voice remained calm, yet it held an extraordinary sense of resolve. It felt as if a hand was cradling my frozen, deadened heart, slowly bit by bit breathing warmth back into it, allowing the barren soil to sprout green life once again. For some reason my eyes suddenly grew hot and red, but I said nothing, only silently reaching out my hands, gently stroking Su Baiju's back, and slowly tightening my embrace. Just then the ship's horn echoed from the harbor, as if urging the lingering passengers to hurry aboard. Su Baiju gently pulled back from the embrace, then picked up our luggage with one hand, while the other tightly held mine, offering me a soft smile. "Let's go. Come with me to welcome a brand new life." I turned back and smiled in return. The two of us blended into the bustling crowd and boarded the ship. Another blast of the horn sounded, and plumes of thick black smoke billowed from the funnel, like an invisible giant hand waving goodbye to the dock. Passengers crowded along the railings of the deck, waving longingly to the loved ones they were leaving behind on shore. Only Su Baiju and I leaned close together, silently watching the harbor as it slowly faded into the distance, until the very last silhouette of the dock vanished from our sight. At the hospital after Bai Ningbing dropped me at the station, she immediately rushed back to the hospital. Ever since Song Jinian was knocked down by me, his mood had been extremely unstable, and he had become incredibly stubborn and irrational. He couldn't stand to be away from her for even a minute, and if she was out of his sight for even a moment, Song Jinian would throw a fit crying until he got his way. Just thinking of that, Bai Ningbing quickened her pace even more. Sure enough, when he woke up in the hospital room, and found his wife nowhere to be seen, Song Jinian's tears began to fall uncontrollably. "Rushu, where are you?" He called out repeatedly but received no answer, causing panic to rise within him, which only made his injured leg throb with more pain. But he didn't care about the pain, forcing his weak body out of bed, determined to find her no matter what. At that very moment, Bai Ningbing, the very person Song Jinian was crying for, pushed open the door and rushed inside. Jinian, seeing him trying to get out of bed with no strength left, looking as if he was about to collapse, Bai Ningbing's heart tightened, and she rushed over to catch him. "Careful." Enveloped in those familiar arms, all the grievance and fear Song Jinian had bottled up instantly exploded. He gripped Bai Ningbing's collar tighter and tighter, and slowly raised his head to look at her. As he moved, tears rolled down his cheeks and splashed onto the floor. "I thought you didn't want me anymore." Bai Ningbing's unusual behavior toward me lately, coupled with my subtle provocations, had left Song Jinian feeling deeply insecure and threatened, having witnessed his own mother's downfall in family power struggles. In the decade of suffering that followed, he understood exactly what that feeling of impending doom meant. Now his heart was consumed by terror, fearing Bai Ningbing would discard him just as his father had discarded his mother. For so long Bai Ningbing had treated him exceptionally well, not only pulling him from the depths of misery, but also providing a life of luxury he had never dared to dream of. Ever since her return from the battlefield, she seemed to love him even more deeply, spending every night by his side. Her love was an addiction he couldn't break, and he couldn't imagine a world without her in it. Thus he used every trick in the book, just to prevent that inevitable abandonment. Yet when he woke up in that hospital bed, she was nowhere to be found. Only Bai Ningbing's guard was there to tell him that she had taken me home. Song Jinian waited for what felt like an eternity, but she never returned. Dread filled his soul, fearing that something might happen between her and me on the road. He didn't dare think further, for if something truly happened, where would he and the child in her womb go? Fortunately, she had finally come back in time. Looking at the pathetic state of Song Jinian in her arms, all the words Bai Ningbing intended to say dissolved into a single sigh. She reached out using her fingertips to gently wipe away Song Jinian's tears. Once she had finished comforting him, Bai Ningbing finally explained why she was late. She said she originally planned to take me all the way to the Feng house, but because she was worried about him, she dropped me off near the train station instead, and hurried back to the hospital immediately. Unexpectedly, the car broke down along the way, and fearing that Song Jinian would be anxious, she left the car with the guard, and ran all the way back to the hospital herself. Only then did Song Jinian notice her sweat-drenched forehead and her soaked clothes. He was both moved and pained for her, quickly using a handkerchief to wipe her face. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, he bit his lips slightly and asked, "But Rushu, is it really okay to leave Feng Yuan all alone at the station like that? If something were to happen?" Song Jinian's mouth spoke words of concern, but in his heart he was cursing me, hoping something bad would happen. In his mind, if something truly happened to me, I would never have another chance to come back and seduce his wife again. Hearing his words, Bai Ningbing stiffened slightly, but then she shook her head gently, comforting Song Jinian as he clung to her. "It will be fine. As an adult, I'm sure he can take care of himself." Bai Ningbing thought to herself. All those years when she wasn't around, hadn't I managed perfectly well on my own? It was just a trip home, what could possibly go wrong? Besides, she had already called my parents, telling them to meet me at the station. Late that night, Bai Ningbing, as she did every day, lay down beside Song Jinian. He snuggled into her embrace, his hand gently caressing her stomach. Whenever they spoke of the baby, the two of them would start talking excitedly. For some reason, Song Jinian suddenly became curious about the baby's future looks. "Rushu, who do you think our child will look like more?" The hand stroking Bai Ningbing's belly stilled for a moment. "It doesn't matter who they look like, as long as you're happy," she said the words. But in her mind my face involuntarily appeared. She couldn't help but wonder what our child would look like if we ever had one together. If it were a boy, she hoped he would take after me, so she could cherish both of her men in the palm of her hand. And if it were a girl, she wanted her to look like herself, so she would have two precious treasures to pamper. Thinking of the baby sweetly clinging to both of them, Bai Ningbing's usually cold face softened with a strange tenderness. The corners of her mouth curled into a natural smile. Seeing that look of tenderness on her, Song Jinian felt a surge of heat, and he pulled her closer. Ru Shu. Bai Ningbing looked down at Song Jinian, noticing the suggestive look in his eyes and the heat in his gestures. This caused a slight stir in her lower abdomen, but her mind remained crystal clear. Since she had faked the pregnancy announcement, her mission was essentially complete. She was only staying by his side now, to ensure the successful birth of this child. Her heart was already set on returning to our home, so she had no desire for any further intimacy with Song Jinian. With that thought, she took a deep breath, trying to suppress the strange sensations in her body, and prepared to pull Song Jinian's hand away. However, Song Jinian's desire was already peaking, and he wasn't about to let go so easily. Thinking she was just being shy, he leaned his lips close to hers and whispered, Ru Shu, we're husband and wife. You're past the morning sickness phase, and the pregnancy is stable. The doctor said it's perfectly safe to do it. The words husband and wife struck Bai Ningbing's mind like a warning bell, snapping her back to full consciousness. That's right. She was so caught up in the dream of returning to our little home that she had forgotten her current identity. Right now she was still playing the role of Bai Ru Shu, wife of Song Jinian. She still had to fulfill the duties and responsibilities of a wife. At that thought, her eyes darkened, and she leaned down, proactively pressing a kiss onto Song Jinian's lips. The two lay facing each other under the covers, one of her hands cradling his face, her breath quickening. She kissed him with varying intensity while her other hand carefully protected the child in her womb. Song Jinian's eyes grew hazy, drowning in the warmth of her sudden passion. Outside, the rain poured down harder with each passing moment, audible even through the closed glass windows. Dark clouds swirled across the horizon, thunder roared through the sky, and the torrential downpour showed no sign of stopping. Mist seeped through the cracks of the unlatched window, bringing a chill into the room. The hospital room curtain was pulled shut by a large hand, leaving only the faint glow of a wall lamp, casting the shadows of two entwined bodies against the wall. Early the next morning, the rain that had drizzled all night finally ceased. The post-rain air carried the sweet mild scent of damp earth mixed with fresh grass. The morning sun filtered through the canopy of ancient trees, slipping through the leaves to dance upon the ground. Sunlight touched the lounge chair beneath the trees, and shimmered on the swing, swaying gently among the branches. Flowers as large as teacups lay battered by the rain, their petals strewn across the earth. The neighborhood, silent through the long night, now began to stir with life. The ring of bicycle bells, the clear cries of street vendors, and the constant chatter and laughter of people filled the air. It was this lively symphony of sounds that awoke Bai Ningbing as she lay in the hospital bed holding Song Jinian tight. She gently released him, silently slipping out of bed. She bent down to pick up the scattered clothes from the floor, and tossed them all into the laundry basket. Then she opened the wardrobe, took out a fresh set of clothes to change into, and quietly left the room. Doing the math, I should have arrived home by now, since it was so late last night, and fearing I was exhausted from the long journey, and in need of rest, she had held back her worry, not calling the Feng house immediately. Now that a night has passed, I must have recovered my strength. At that thought, she hurried to a public phone booth, and dialed the Feng family home. The phone rang and rang with no answer. Bai Ningbing's heart grew heavier with every ring. Just as she was about to hang up and redial, my father's voice suddenly came through from the other end. Who is this? Bai Ningbing's eyes lit up with joy. Father. I mean uncle, it's me. It's Bai Ru Shu. My father only gave a cold "oh" before asking. You're calling here. Is there something you need? Hearing my father's distant tone, Bai Ningbing was momentarily stunned. In her memory, father had always been very satisfied with her as a daughter-in-law, treating her family with great warmth and hospitality, never with such coldness as he showed now. Her hand tightened around the receiver, sensing the clear shift in my father's attitude. But she could quite put her finger on what was wrong. On the other end, seeing that Bai Ningbing remained silent, my father was about to hang up. Bai Ningbing snapped out of it, hurriedly asking, Has Feng Yuan arrived home yet? Is he available to come to the phone? My father's voice paused for a beat, and then my mother snatched the phone away, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You really are something, sticking your nose into everything under the sun. Are you trying to control Feng Yuan's entire life too, whether his back or not? Shouldn't you know that best yourself? Bai Ningbing was stunned. Only then did she remember why the Feng family held such a grudge against her. Back then, when everyone saw me as a grieving widower, the Feng family felt immense pity for my situation. Fearing I would suffer in lonely hardship, they intended to bring me back, to arrange a marriage with a virtuous new wife for me. But since Bai Ningbing was very much alive, How could she stand by and watch her husband marry someone else? So she had vehemently opposed it, even kneeling at the Feng family's doorstep, swearing to the heavens that she would take care of me for the rest of her life. But the Feng family didn't believe a word of her oaths, and remained determined to take me away. Eventually she had to rely on the intervention of high-ranking officials to settle the matter in her favor. From that moment on, the Feng family never gave her or her mother a kind look, or a good word ever again. Bai Ningbing knew she was the one at fault first, so she told herself that once she successfully gave birth, she would go to the Feng house in person to apologize and admit her wrongs. After hanging up, my mother turned to my father with a displeased expression. Her face was filled with murderous intent. The nerve of that woman still showing her face to ask about Feng Yuan. In reality, the Feng family had long known that the person on the other end was Bai Ningbing. The news of my marriage to Su Baizhou and our plan to move to the island had been shared with my family by the matchmaker long ago. The reason they revealed nothing to Bai Ningbing and her family was because Bai Ningbing had been the one to deceive them from the start. They were simply giving her a taste of her own medicine, retaliating in the same way she had. My father's expression was also grim, but he restrained himself, patiently reassuring his wife. Don't you worry. I absolutely won't let things end so easily for her. As for Bai Ningbing, the day she returned from her routine checkup happened to be the 60th birthday celebration for Mother Bai. The Bai family in recent years, thanks to the fame of one daughter being a martyr and another a commander, had seen their social status soar. On the day of the birthday banquet, the Bai house was teeming with people, guests coming and going in a constant stream. Even Bai Ningbing's superior officers came in person to offer their congratulations to Mother Bai. For a moment Mother Bai felt incredibly prestigious, beaming with pride before everyone. She scanned the room with her eyes. On the left was Bai Ningbing paired with her eldest son-in-law Song Jinian, and on the right was her youngest daughter, who had married off to distant Beijing, who had put everything aside to bring her husband back by train for the event. However, there was one single chair at the very end that remained empty. That was the seat reserved for her second son-in-law, Feng Yuan. Mother Bai had originally intended to have Bai Ningbing bring me along for this grand occasion. Bai Ningbing used the excuse of the long difficult journey, claiming she feared it would be too taxing for my health, and coupled with her fear that I would come back and hurt Song Jinian again, she had successfully convinced Mother Bai to drop the idea. The Bai family had always struggled with having children, so now that their daughter was finally pregnant with their own blood, Mother Bai naturally wanted no unforeseen incidents to affect the baby. She only felt a slight regret that this birthday celebration still wouldn't be a full family reunion. Just then a knock came from the door outside. Mother Bai hurriedly stood up. Let's go. It's time for the banquet to begin. Bai Ningbing quickly stepped forward to support her, but Mother Bai just waved her away. You're carrying a child now, your body is heavy. Just let your husband take care of you and protect you. Bai Ningbing's face instantly flushed with embarrassment. She turned her head slightly to look at Song Jinian as he came over to assist her. In the moment their eyes met with affection, she quickly looked away, avoiding his gaze. Seeing the young couple so deeply in love, everyone around them couldn't stop praising them. Only the Bai parents who knew the truth offered forced smiles full of hidden worry. The garden of the Bai house was brilliantly decorated with lanterns and embroidered silk. The color television that Bai Ningbing had gone to great lengths to buy was showing captivating films. Opposite on a stage, actors were performing the traditional operas that Mother Bai loved so much. As vibrant fireworks began to bloom in the night sky, the birthday celebration reached its most exciting and peak moment. Bai Ningbing and Song Jinian stood on either side, carefully guiding Mother Bai to the main banquet table. On the table was a massive longevity peach cake that Song Jinian had ordered specially from the most famous bakery in the region. Amidst the thunderous applause and well wishes from the guests, Mother Bai smiled as she prepared to take the knife and cut the cake. But in the very next instant the shut gates were violently kicked open from the outside. The Feng family, faces filled with murderous rage, led a large group of people charging straight into the house. Bai Rushu. The lively atmosphere of a moment ago suddenly turned cold and thick like ice. Everyone present was utterly bewildered and confused by the aggressive arrival of the Feng family. Bai Ningbing's face paled visibly when she heard her name being called out so harshly. She couldn't fathom why the Feng family would travel all this way to start trouble. And more importantly, she noticed that I was nowhere to be seen among the crowd. Suspicion mixed with unease and 1,000 other chaotic emotions instantly besieged her mind in that split second. Just as she was about to step forward to demand an explanation, Mother Bai forced the most awkward smile possible and quickly stepped over to try and take my mother's hand. Oh dear-in-laws, what brings you here so suddenly? But in the face of Mother Bai's fake enthusiasm, my mother didn't even give her a second glance. She decisively brushed Mother Bai's hand away and shouted, "Shut up. Don't you dare call me your in-law ever again." Bai Ningbing rushed up in a panic to support her staggering mother. Her face now set in a harsh expression. What kind of game do you think you're playing here? My mother grew even angrier, screaming, "What am I doing? I haven't even asked what your wretched family has done to my son yet. You were the ones who swore before so many people that you would take care of him. And look at him now, how long has it even been? You've tormented and abused my son until it's come to this. Seeing such a huge scene unfold, no one around them wanted to leave. Everyone crowding around out of curiosity to witness the spectacle. The Bai family members were all trembling with terror inside, exchanging panicked and fearful glances with each other, desperately wanting to invite the Feng family inside to talk and avoid a public scandal. But my father roared in fury, telling his companions to block their path. Go inside. Like hell we will. Only now do you know the meaning of shame. When you were heartlessly harming my son, where was your sense of decency then? I, Rushu, am asking you directly, was it you who forced my son to take the fall for your husband in that illegal trade of youth resettlement quotas? Was it you who pushed my son toward death, nearly burying him alive in that mine collapse? Did you all just stand by and let that bastard husband of yours set fire to kill my son, and then watch without lifting a finger to save him? Each explosive secret revealed by my father sent massive shockwaves through the air. The entire birthday banquet erupted in a frenzy of shocked whispers and absolute disbelief. The sound of murmuring rose from every corner. Mother Bai, who hadn't known a single thing about these wicked deeds, saw her face go deathly pale with horror. She turned to her daughter Rushu with eyes full of suspicion and disbelief. Rushu, everything they just said. Is it true? Of course it's 100% true. Before Bai Ningbing could even open her mouth to defend herself, my mother held up a stack of printed evidence and threw it across the yard. The white papers fluttered through the air like winter snowflakes, landing right into the hands of the onlookers. The moment they read the contents, everyone present turned pale with absolute dread. My God, I can't believe it. Are these disgusting things actually true? How could this family be so cruel and heartless? How could they treat the husband of a martyr so terribly? Feng Yuan is just a poor widower, yet they heartlessly forced him to take all the blame for their eldest son-in-law. They clearly wanted to drive poor Feng Yuan to his death. My mother stood there hearing every word of criticism and scorn directed at the Bai family, and all the resentment she had suppressed for so long suddenly exploded in a violent burst. She suddenly fell to her knees with a thud, collapsing onto the ground, and began to wail in agonizing pain. Every word she uttered cut through the hearts of the listeners. This house is full of soulless people, cruel as beasts. My precious son was tortured by you monsters until he is no longer recognizable as a human being. If you had no heart and couldn't care for him, then why did you block our path and refuse to let us take him home from the start? Oh my son, my poor son, why is your fate so miserable? The scene at the birthday banquet had turned into pure unadulterated chaos. The sound of harsh condemnation, my mother's sorrowful wailing, and the crowd's vicious insults filled the air without pause. All those sounds were like a series of divine slaps, striking Mother Bai across the face until she had nowhere left to hide. She completely collapsed, unable to bear another moment of such humiliation. She clutched her chest, her breathing shallow and rapid, and suddenly her eyes rolled back, and she went limp, fainting right on the spot. Amidst that horrific mess, Bai Ningbing's direct superior, a veteran political commissar of the military region, stepped decisively into the crowd. He stood there to restore order and stabilize the situation, then sternly asked the Feng family how exactly they wanted this matter resolved. My mother, helped up by a relative, quickly wiped away the tears streaming down her face. She set her resolve and spoke coldly. I want my son Feng Yuan to completely sever all ties with this wretched Bai family. At that moment a bolt of lightning streaked across the sky, followed by a deafening clap of thunder, the flash illuminating the faces full of terror and shock of everyone in the yard, especially Bai Ningbing, whose face turned deathly pale, drained of all blood, looking like a lifeless corpse as if all her strength had been sucked out of her in an instant. What did she just hear? They were demanding that I and the Bai family sever all ties completely. Never. That can absolutely never happen. It was only a short while until the child in her womb would be born. She was also on the verge of fulfilling her sister's final wish, about to rightfully return to my side with her true identity. Then she would reveal the whole harsh truth to me, so that we too could continue to live a blissful life as before. But at the very moment her perfect plan was about to reach its successful conclusion, the Feng family suddenly appeared, demanding her husband leave her. She absolutely couldn't let it happen, her mouth murmuring, "No, never." However, all of Bai Ningbing's vehement protests at this moment became incredibly weak and laughable before the iron determination of the Feng family. Since the day the Feng family discovered Bai Ningbing's true face full of schemes and cruelty, they had developed an extreme hatred for her and the entire Bai family. They thought their son would lead a wonderful life by marrying into the Bai family. Never did they imagine it was like stepping straight into a pit of fire. If they had known sooner, they would have risked their lives to stop their son from entering that house. But fortunately, it is still not too late to put a stop to everything. They even felt lucky that Bai Ningbing had committed these acts. This way their son could use the excuse of his wife's death to draw a clear line and completely sever ties with the Bai family. This is much easier than going through a military divorce. Moreover, Bai Ningbing and the Bai family no longer have any reason to cling to their son, unless she chooses to publicly reveal her true identity. But if she does that, she will end up behind bars, no matter which path she chooses. For Bai Ningbing, it will be a fate worse than death. The Feng family had considered exactly this. That is why they chose Mother Bai's birthday banquet to force her to show her face. If she dares to admit she is Bai Ningbing, they can kill two birds with one stone, sending both her and the entire Bai family straight to hell. What right do you have to object, Bai Rushu? Those last 3 words were emphasized heavily by my mother. It seemed as if she was reminding Bai Ningbing of her current identity. If it's about honoring my son, you've already done so in your sister's place for 2 years. You talk about suffering. But my son has already endured so much agony. No matter how much he owed your family, hasn't my son already paid back that debt? Besides, if anyone truly has the right to object, it should be my son's wife, your sister Bai Ningbing. You are merely his sister-in-law. In fact, you are just an outsider, since you have no relation to my son. On what grounds are you objecting? It's not me. It is Bai Ningbing. With a loud boom, another bolt of lightning tore across the sky. The noisy scene suddenly fell into a deathly silence. Everyone stared at Bai Ningbing in utter disbelief. They were so shocked their mouths hung open. Did they hear her correctly? What did she just say? She said she is Bai Ningbing. It's like seeing a ghost. Song Jinian standing beside her was frozen in shock. He even forgot about his aching leg. He disregarded everything and gripped Bai Ningbing's hand tightly. Rushu, what nonsense are you talking about? Even if you want to keep your brother-in-law, you shouldn't say such insane things. Aren't you afraid your sister's ghost will come back to find you? That's right. Listen, Rushu, you've truly lost your mind. My mother looked at the anxious woman before her. She sneered as the woman exposed her own identity. Do you have any proof that you are Bai Ningbing? Back then everyone saw Bai Ningbing's body with their own eyes. They also saw her coffin being buried, didn't they? You can eat anything, but you absolutely cannot speak so recklessly. Bai Rushu, this is no matter to be joked about. Bai Ningbing stood rooted to the spot. Her hands were clenched into tight fists. Hesitation and a fierce internal struggle were etched between her brows. After a long while, she finally looked up. Every word she spoke was firm and unwavering. I am Bai Ningbing, not Bai Rushu. The one who died back then was my sister, not me. Bai Ningbing had overestimated herself. She had originally planned to wait until the child was born, to reveal the whole truth. But now they were trying to force her husband, forcing her Fang Yuan to leave her. They were backing her into a corner step by step. Caught off guard, she had no other choice. She could not afford to lose me. As for Song Jinian, she had been by his side for all these years. She had even given him a child. Even if she wasn't with him in the future, he could still find the strength to live on. Thunder rumbled loudly, followed by a torrential downpour. The raindrops fell like bullets. Rain cascaded from the eaves, falling in endless sheets, pounding rhythmically against the canopy. The roar of the rain made it hard to hear the woman's voice amidst the crowd. But Song Jinian, standing right next to Bai Ningbing, heard every single word. He felt as if he had been struck by a bolt of lightning. His mind went completely blank. He shook his head in a daze, taking several steps back. His knee slammed into the edge of the rosewood table. The piercing pain made him stumble and collapse. Rao Shu, you're just joking, right? The wife who shared his bed every night for 2 years. The wife who had just told him she loved him. The wife who had shared countless intimate moments with him. Now standing before everyone. She used cold words to announce it to the world, telling him this devastating truth, that she was not his wife at all, but rather his sister-in-law, the wife of mine whom he had once detested the most. He looked up at the woman trembling. You're playing with me, aren't you? Song Jinian stared intently at Bai Ningbing's face, but under the lights her face suddenly seemed distorted and twisted, becoming blurred and unrecognizable. All the doubts he had harbored for so long were suddenly answered. A person whose personality and tastes had completely changed. Someone who occasionally showed concern for her widowed brother-in-law, even repeatedly turning away matchmakers who were looking for him. It was her all along. The one who gazed at him with affection in bed. Yet those eyes seemed to look right through him, searching for someone else. The one who always rushed to his side whenever he was injured, and the one who had barged into my room while drunk. Everything finally became clear at this very moment. The chandelier swayed violently in the storm. Song Jinian finally let out a choked sob, and that cry grew louder and more desperate, just like my cries 2 years ago when I heard my wife had sacrificed her life. Just as mournful and devoid of hope. The delayed pain of losing a wife from 2 years ago, he finally tasted it today. Unable to withstand the shock, his eyes rolled back, and he lost consciousness completely. Bai Ningbing wanted to help him up, but the shock was too great for her to stand either, and her vision went dark, and she collapsed onto the floor. There was a significant amount of blood on the floor. Someone has had a miscarriage. Call an ambulance immediately. This chaotic scene finally ended temporarily with both Song Jinian and Bai Ningbing unconscious. After a night of emergency treatment, Song Jinian was out of any major danger, but the child in Bai Ningbing's womb could not be saved. Mother Bai delivered a stinging slap to Bai Ningbing's face, crying out in anguish, "You are so incredibly foolish." If only Bai Ningbing had endured just a little while longer, just a few more months, and the child would have been born, continuing the bloodline for the Bai family. Yet she chose that very day to expose her secret. Not only did it cost the Bai family their grandchild, but it also stripped the family of all its dignity. Now the entire city of Yunqing knows. The second daughter of the Bai family impersonated her sister to sleep with her brother-in-law. Now there is no need for the Fang family to keep their distance. The commissar himself stepped in to make a decision, to let me sever all connections with the Bai family. And because this incident caused such a massive scandal, even Bai Ningbing's position as regiment commander was revoked. To lose everything so suddenly like that. No wonder Mother Bai was so infuriated. She raised her hand to strike again. But Bai Ningbing was like a soulless doll now. No matter how much her mother beat her, or cursed at her, she offered no reaction. Finally a nurse came out from inside to stop them, and asked who would visit the patient who had just woken up. We'll go in to see Song Jinian. Only then did Bai Ningbing snap back to her senses. Let me go in. After all, Song Jinian had been completely unaware of this. She felt she owed him a massive debt. She would do her absolute best to make it up to him. Thinking of that, she ignored her mother screaming from behind, and pushed open the door to Song Jinian's ward. The moment the door closed, all the noise from outside was silenced. Bai Ningbing looked toward the hospital bed. She saw the man with a ghostly pale face, lying there with lifeless vacant eyes. She clenched her hands, then walked toward Song Jinian, and sat down beside his hospital bed. I am the one at fault here and am sorry. However you want to be compensated, just say the word. After a long silence, Song Jinian finally reacted from his bed. He slowly turned his head to look at her, looking at the woman with bloodshot eyes, and her utterly broken appearance. His eyes were filled with a whirlpool of complex emotions. What could she possibly compensate him with? He had longed for his wife's return day and night. He had shared intimate and tender nights with his wife, and was filled with joy when she became pregnant with their child. Everything was clearly going so perfectly. Yet she suddenly shattered that beautiful dream, and told him that it was all just to keep him from the pain of losing a wife, so he could rely on the child to keep struggling to live. It was all just a meticulously crafted lie. Now that the lie was exposed, his wife is gone, his child is gone, even his honor has vanished. Now he is left with nothing. What else could she possibly offer to compensate him? Song Jinian's fingers gripped the blanket tightly. His knuckles turned white from the strain. The voice from his throat was as hoarse as sandpaper. Bai Ningbing, what you should have done was not to compensate me, never to shatter that lie, so he could continue living while immersed in that beautiful dream. Instead of enduring this heart-wrenching pain over and over again, Bai Ningbing closed her eyes. Her voice became even weaker. Any words at this moment were completely meaningless. The clock on the wall continued to tick away. Only the breathing of the two of them remained in the room. No one knew how much time had passed. Song Jinian finally spoke up again. Is any compensation acceptable? Bai Ningbing paused for a moment. Yes, this time. Song Jinian finally broke into a smile. But that smile carried no warmth in his eyes. Fine, then I want you to marry me. Bai Ningbing shot up from her chair. No. The only person she loves is me. She only recognizes me as her husband. She will never marry anyone else. This is just too preposterous. Change your request to something else. Preposterous. Song Jinian burst out laughing, but his laughter was filled with pure irony. You think this is preposterous? Then what about when you were so self-righteous, when you impersonated your sister to sleep with me, and bear my child? Why didn't you find it preposterous then? Do you have any idea? Because of you my reputation is completely destroyed. I won't be able to marry anyone else now. How do you expect me to live my life from now on? Let me tell you something, Bai Ningbing. For the rest of your life you can only and must marry me. No. Yes, you will. Before Bai Ningbing could finish her sentence, Mother Bai, who had been eavesdropping at the door, interrupted as she stormed into the room. Already deeply distressed over losing one daughter and one son-in-law, now she was on the verge of losing her second son-in-law as well. Mother Bai was so worried her mouth was breaking out in blisters. She never imagined Song Jinian would take the initiative to marry Bai Ningbing. This was truly the best possible news for Mother Bai. Mother! Bai Ningbing couldn't believe it. Even at this point, Mother Bai was still causing trouble. Ningbing, our family has already wronged Feng Yuan enough. We cannot afford to wrong Jinian as well. I agree to this. Once Jinian is discharged, the two of you must go and register your marriage immediately. That is absolutely impossible. Feng Yuan is my only husband. Bai Ningbing's face darkened completely. She had already hurt Feng Yuan once. She could not bear to hurt him any further, and she certainly could not marry anyone else. No matter what you think, Mother, I only need Feng Yuan. Bai Ningbing. The ward door was suddenly kicked open from the outside. Panting, the person said, Ningbing, there is news of Feng Yuan, really. Instantly, Bai Ningbing's gloomy face lit up with radiance. She didn't care about anything else anymore, and rushed straight out the door. Bai Ningbing, stop right there. No matter how much Mother Bai screamed behind her, Bai Ningbing didn't look back even once. On a small island in the south, I had underestimated my own physical condition. During the 3 days at sea, I was seasick for 2 of them. On the last day I just slept in a daze. From getting off the ship to reaching the Su family home, I had to rely on Subaizo to support me every step of the way. Lying in bed for nearly half a month, I finally began to regain my spirits. I started to observe everything carefully. Our new home, mine and Subaizo's. The new house was situated right on the side of a mountain. It was a small 2-story building. Around the house, both the front and backyards were filled with fruit trees and vegetables. Next to the fish pond surrounded by fences, and right by the edge of the pond, Subaizo was wearing comfortable short sleeves, sitting on a small folding chair, leisurely casting her fishing line. Seeing me approach, she quickly got another folding chair, and told me to sit down. How is your health now? These past few days, perhaps because I wasn't used to the climate, I not only lost my appetite, but I also became visibly thinner. Seeing me like this, Subaizo couldn't help but feel pained. Every day she sought out advice, and constantly changed the menu to cook for me. Now I finally had enough strength to come downstairs and keep her company. I nodded slightly, then sat down leaning against her. I'm much better now. Subaizo, who had been worried, could finally breathe a sigh of relief. She took my hand and rubbed it gently. A hint of regret appeared in her eyes. If I'd known, I wouldn't have chosen this island for my assignment. Subaizo is a resident reporter for the news department. She travels all over the country throughout the year. This time she chose to be stationed in this far-off south, to send the latest news back to the office promptly. At that time she chose this island. For another reason as well, because at that time I hadn't accepted her proposal yet. At that moment Subaizo thought that if I didn't accept her feelings, she would go somewhere very far away from me, so she wouldn't have to see me anymore, and wouldn't, by seeing me, lose control and want to take me for herself. Who would have thought that just as she signed her name for the assignment, the matchmaker brought her news that I had agreed to marry her. Of the 3 greatest joys in life, she had already secured 2 of them. But as much as she rejoiced then, she feels just as regretful now. She didn't expect me to struggle so much with the new environment here. I took her hands and smiled. It's fine, you'll have to adapt eventually. Besides, working on a remote island is your dream. As your fiancé, it's only natural that I support that dream with all my heart. At the word fiancé, Subaizo pulled me into her arms and whispered, speaking of which, we should start preparing for our wedding, because the island they were on was in a very special location. It was very difficult for outsiders to reach this place. Furthermore, the health of both their parents wasn't very good, so neither family could attend the wedding this time, but they still sent us very generous betrothal gifts and dowries. Mentioning the wedding, I suddenly felt a wave of bashfulness, so I asked her teasingly, what made you think of getting married all of a sudden? Subaizo let out a soft chuckle, then gently placed a kiss on my forehead. Her eyes were filled with a burning, passionate love. Because I want to marry you right now, be your wife. This has been Subaizo's greatest wish for the past 25 years. Since the first time she saw me during our high school years, there has been no room in her heart for anyone else. Back then my mind was only on my studies. I didn't care at all about romance. I flatly rejected anyone who sent me love letters. At that time she felt both lucky and sad. Lucky that I didn't belong to anyone, but also sad, fearing she wouldn't be able to win me over either. But after thinking it over carefully, Subaizo decided to muster all her courage and confess to me once. Sadly, before she could speak, we went our separate ways for university after graduation. By the time Subaizo heard about me again, I had already married Bai Ningbing. That night, Subaizo was surrounded by empty liquor bottles. Yet she still couldn't give up on me. She kept waiting patiently for an opportunity, and finally she waited until the day I lost my wife. Hearing the news, Subaizo couldn't hide her extreme excitement. She even wanted to set off fireworks on the spot. Without even telling her parents, she rushed to find a matchmaker to propose to me. Although I rejected her countless times during that period, eventually her persistence led to a happy ending. Thinking back on all that, she held me even tighter in her arms. Early the next morning, Subaizo and I got into the car together, driving along the new road toward the distant harbor. Because this island is so remote, all necessities depend on the cargo ships. Due to the long distance, the ship can only visit the island once a month. Therefore, on the 15th of every month, the islanders flock to the harbor for the ship market. Subaizo shielded me with one arm, to keep me from being pushed aside by the crowd, carefully leading me step by step onto the ship. Since the ship only docks occasionally, the goods on board are incredibly rich and diverse. You could say nothing in the world is missing. Shortly after boarding, Subaizo had already picked out many things: powdered milk malt extract, cassia oil, short-sleeved shirts, a butterfly watch, and all sorts of other items, and most of them were for me. Seeing her spend money like water, I couldn't help but feel bad for her wallet. I quickly grabbed her hand to stop her. Baijo, this is really too much. Subaizo just smiled gently and squeezed my hand, but I still don't think it's enough. Since the moment I gave my heart to you, I started planning to save money, all to provide you with a prosperous life later, so you won't lack anything, and never have to look at others with envy. Besides, if my money isn't for you to spend, then who else would it be for? Moreover, everyone in my family is well off. They send us more money every year anyway. Seeing how determined she was, I didn't have the heart to say anything else to stop her. I also proactively bought her some beautiful dresses and a new bicycle, to make it easier for her to get around. By the time we left with all the things we bought, even the pickup truck had no room left. Eventually we had to tie the bulky items to the roof, before we could finally head home. A few days later, Subaijo and I brought some gifts, to pay a special visit to the most famous wedding officiant on the island, and asked him to find an auspicious date for our wedding. Not long after the officiant's careful consideration, he finally set our wedding date for 1 month later. Once the big day was decided, both of us began busy preparations for every step. And the first thing to do was to get a marriage introduction letter from the authorities. The moment we both signed our names next to the words voluntary marriage, a strange surge of happiness flooded my heart. This meant we were one giant step closer to officially becoming husband and wife. With the introduction letter in hand, we rushed straight to the Civil Affairs Bureau. When signing the marriage agreement, neither of us could hide our overwhelming emotions. I stared at the 4 words marriage agreement under my pen. My mind suddenly drifted back to events from many years ago. The time when Bai Ningbing and I went to register our marriage. Back then, 1, I had never tasted what love was. 2, I was just a green youth entering the world, so I had absolutely no experience with married life. Everything relied on the staff's guidance and Bai Ningbing. Consequently, holding the certificate in my hand brought me no joy. Instead, I only saw a future that was dim and uncertain. I didn't know what role I would play later, or what I truly needed to do. Everything was one big question mark to me. But Bai Ningbing was certain that I was just overly stressed, so she gently comforted me, telling me not to worry or be afraid of anything, because from then on she would be there to shoulder everything for me, and indeed she did exactly as she had promised. From the wedding night to our daily life afterward, she was always the one leading me. Perhaps because she treated me so well, that I became far too dependent on her, to the point that when I heard news of Bai Ningbing's death, besides the grief, I felt only an immense sense of displacement. I was so used to being cared for and pampered by her. Without her, I truly didn't know how I was supposed to go on. You could say at that time Bai Ningbing was my entire world. Because of that, there were times when I was completely lost in despair, constantly dwelling on the idea of seeking death as an escape. But then later, it was also because of Bai Ningbing's death that I gradually learned how to grow up and started living more independently, realizing that I could still survive even without her, and that I could still face any hardship. However, just as I was ready to accept the bitterness I'd never before tasted, I suddenly discovered Bai Ningbing's secret. In that moment of discovery, it felt like thousands of thunderbolts were striking my ears. Because of that, my feelings for Bai Ningbing turned completely cold, and I decided that I had to leave her forever. I had just accepted Subaiju's marriage proposal, even though marrying Subaijo meant I would have to forget the past and strive to fulfill my duties as a husband. To ask me to feel hope and passion for marriage once more seemed almost impossible. But in this moment I realized I was wrong. Perhaps I had been influenced by Subaijo's presence these past few days. At this moment my heart surged with emotion. I began to harbor expectations for our future life together. I even thought about all the things she and I would do together. Thinking of this, a happy smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. I bowed my head and signed my name on the marriage agreement, and pressed my fingerprint onto the paper. The one who was equally moved was Subaijo. Looking at the marriage agreement before her, she felt an indescribable sense of euphoria. It felt as if she were in a dream. To see if it was real, she gave her thigh a hard pinch. The moment the pain surged, she broke into a radiant smile. She let out a silly giddy laugh. That laugh caught my attention. What is it? Subaijo smiled at me innocently. Oh, it's nothing. I just thought I was still dreaming. So I pinched myself. Her actions made me burst into laughter instantly. Soon following the staff's instructions, we both sat before the red backdrop for our marriage photo. Come on now. You two lean your heads a bit closer. Guided by the photographer, Subaijo and I leaned in close, cheek to cheek. We smiled together into the lens. Subaijo's warm breath brushed against my face, making my cheeks flush deep red. My hands nervously toyed with the edge of my shirt. Overwhelmed with shyness, I didn't dare look at her, because we were standing so close. Subaijo could clearly hear my heart racing beside her. The rhythmic thumping of my heart made her so nervous that she stood stiffly upright. Her back was damp with sweat. Her hands were clenched into fists inside her pockets. She wanted to calm down, but her heart fluttered wildly like a startled fawn. Look at the camera now. Click. A flash of white light sparked. The fresh marriage photo was pasted onto our marriage certificate. It was stamped with the official seal of the Civil Affairs Bureau. As a new couple, Subaijo and I expressed our thanks. While receiving the certificate from the staff, we handed them the wedding candies we had prepared. Subaijo held the brand new marriage certificate, her fingers ceaselessly caressing the photo of us. Where her fingers touched the paper, it felt as sweet as candy. A sweet fragrance filled her senses, sending a wave of happiness through her entire body. The words husband and wife shone in Subaijo's eyes, gradually forming a giant symbol of double happiness. The characters on the paper seemed to turn into countless brilliant fireworks. She could almost hear everyone in the world cheering and celebrating her successful marriage. Like the wild roses climbing the wall, her fingertips unconsciously traced the bright red seal. The distinct texture of the certificate paper made her skin quiver slightly, along with her heart which was racing with emotion. Finally her fingers stopped at the date stamped at the bottom. April 20th. This was the day she and I got married. The starting point of her happy life. She had finally fulfilled her heart's desire. She took a deep breath, trying to suppress the flood of emotions rising within her. But the moisture in the corners of her eyes betrayed her inner joy and excitement. That excitement was like a surging underground spring, impossible to contain. Subaizu could no longer hold back. She suddenly threw her arms around me. Excitedly she grabbed my hands and spun me around. I'm married. I have a husband. What are you doing? I let out a cry of surprise. I'm just so happy. Fang Yuan, I have finally married you. You are finally my husband. She grew more excited as she spoke, causing curious onlookers to turn and watch. Upon hearing Subaiju's words, other newlyweds passing by began to laugh along with her. Their eyes were full of well wishes. I looked down at her and saw my own reflection in her eyes. They were filled with an undeniable burning love that made my own heart race. I bowed my head slightly, a smile slowly spreading across my face. I was so happy that heaven had shown me mercy once again, allowing me to marry someone who loved me so much. Night fell, and the earth was draped in moonlight. Twinkling stars dotted the vast expanse of the sky, emitting a faint but enchanting glow. The September night breeze rustled through the treetops. There were flower buds, blooming late quietly showing off their colors. Tonight was our wedding night. I had finished preparing, and had been lying in bed for a while. Subaiju, however, sat dazed at the edge of the bed. She still didn't dare look at me. Finally, she took a few deep breaths, as if she had just made a momentous decision, and turned to look at me. Fang Yuan, maybe. We should save this for our actual wedding ceremony. After the initial excitement of getting the certificate faded, Subaijo felt an overwhelming surge of nervousness. Mingled with that was a hint of fear. She was afraid that all of this was just a dream. But in the next second, a pair of strong arms reached around and hugged her neck. A clean scent enveloped her as I drew her close. But Baiju, we are already husband and wife. And I've told you before, you are the only one in my heart. I will only love you. I only belong to you. Don't you want to have me? Subaiju looked at me in a daze, mesmerized by the way I was seducing her. Then I pinned her down beneath me. Of course I want you. I took her left hand in mine, our fingers interlocking tightly. The curtains were drawn tight. Only a single wall lamp remained lit. A dim golden light spread throughout the bedroom, until the break of dawn. After crossing that final threshold, the bond between Subaijo and me grew even deeper and more passionate. When morning came, she would plant a soft kiss on my forehead. When night fell, every time she returned from work, she would bring me a bouquet of wildflowers she had picked along the road. And whenever I saw her off to work, I would hug her, while slipping some candies and a boiled egg into her pocket, telling her to eat them whenever she felt hungry. In the evening I would leave the living room light on, with warm rice and sweet soup waiting for her in the pot. Then I'd sit in the living room checking my phone and knitting a sweater, while waiting for her to come home. In our spare time, she would go cycling with me along the coastal road, occasionally stopping at the shore to catch the breeze and pick up shells and snails. Eventually, as time passed, the day of our wedding arrived. Since Subaizu and I had been living together for some time, and both of us disliked elaborate ceremonies, all the wedding rituals were simplified. On the wedding day, amidst the crackling of firecrackers, Subaizu rode a Forever brand bicycle tied with red silk, the back seat covered in red cloth. She carried me wearing a red veil along the designated route. The sides of the road were packed with guests and spectators. Amidst the loud cheers and blessings, the wedding candies carrying our love were tossed by the bridesmaids and groomsmen, filling the entire sky. Finally surrounded by everyone, I carried Subaijo on my back, stepped over the brazier, and headed toward the main hall. Fireworks lit up the sky once more. From the distant port the whistle of a docking ship echoed. Waves of passengers crowded off the deck like flowing water. Stepping onto the pier, among them was Bai Ningbing, who had traveled 1,000 miles to find her husband. Ever since she learned I hadn't gone to my parents' home, but had disappeared suddenly, Bai Ningbing had gone mad searching everywhere for me. Finally, after a month, she found a clue leading to me. She discovered that I had come to this island. She was so overwhelmed with emotion then, she wanted to buy a ticket immediately to find me. But the staff informed her that, due to the specific nature of this island, she had to go through several levels of vetting before coming. Additionally, tickets were incredibly hard to get, so it wasn't until today that she finally set foot on the island. But once Bai Ningbing arrived, she realized the island was massive. Moreover, she had no idea where I had gone after arriving. Trying to find me was truly harder than climbing to heaven. But the word give up didn't exist in Bai Ningbing's dictionary, so she planned to ask the locals for information, while following any useful leads to track me down. Thinking of this, Bai Ningbing quickened her pace, heading toward the town in the distance. As Bai Ningbing was following a bus up the mountain, she saw the vehicle come to a sudden halt. Everyone on the bus suddenly swarmed out like a disturbed hive. They ran excitedly toward a nearby celebration. Bai Ningbing hadn't intended to get off, but a kind passerby pulled her along. "What are you still sitting here for? Go quickly and grab some wedding candy. Get yourself some good luck." Before Bai Ningbing could react, she was dragged into the middle of the crowd. Waves of wedding candy filled the air and rained onto the ground. The wedding in the distant house had reached its climax. The groom would lift the bride's red veil amidst the crowd's blessings, and share a kiss with his bride. Amidst the cheers and encouragement, the groom slowly guided the bride to turn around, to face him. Everyone was curious, jostling forward for a better view. Bai Ningbing was pushed to the front of the crowd. She gradually saw the groom's face clearly. The first thing that caught Bai Ningbing's eye was the groom's elegant black suit. It was tailored perfectly, accentuating my tall stature. For some reason, Bai Ningbing found the groom's silhouette incredibly familiar. Then the groom turned his head to look at the crowd. What appeared before everyone's eyes was the groom's handsome face and deep soulful eyes, along with his straight high-bridged nose. And finally revealed with total clarity was the face that Bai Ningbing could never forget. When my face appeared before Bai Ningbing, it felt like a thunderbolt had struck right next to her ear. Her mind went completely blank instantly. It was me, the one she had yearned for day and night. The one she had gone mad searching for all this time. Me, the one who once gave her all my love. The one who once knelt before her casket, weeping and begging to die with her. The one who had left her tormented by regret and pain for so many nights. And yet here I was standing right in front of her. The day I went missing, she had truly nearly lost her mind. She had knelt before the Fang family gates so many times. So many times the Fang family had splashed cold water in her face. So many times she had been slapped and driven away. Still she remained as steadfast as a mountain. She pleaded miserably, not for their forgiveness, but only for them to tell her where on earth I had gone. But even when she fainted in the rain from a high fever, the Fang family gate had never opened once. But Bai Ningbing refused to give up. In the end, she didn't even care about her pride anymore. She even sought out her old enemies at their home, only hoping they could help find me. And now she had finally found me. But never in a million years did she expect that her Feng Yuan would be someone else's groom. Why? Why did things turn out this way? She had realized from the Fang family's reaction that I had known her secret for a long time. That was why I had left in such a rage. But we had been husband and wife for so long. I had once loved her so deeply. Why would I suddenly marry another woman? Was it because she had gone too far? Was I doing this just to get back at her? Bai Ningbing's mind was in a total mess. She couldn't hear anything anymore, nor could she see anything, as she saw that woman about to press her lips against my own. Bai Ningbing could no longer restrain herself. She desperately tried to break through the crowding masses, using every bit of strength to rush toward me. She didn't even care about the shocked looks of the guests around her, no. But the moment her scream left her lips, it was immediately drowned out by the surrounding cheers. Bai Ningbing grew more terrified, her voice becoming hoarse. At this moment only one thought screamed frantically in her mind. Don't let that woman kiss him. You two cannot get married. He belongs to her. No matter the cost, she was willing to pay it. She had to win me back at all costs. She wanted to tell me how much she had missed me during the days I was gone, how she had longed for me. She wanted to tell me the entire truth. She wanted to tell me that everything was over now. She could finally return to my side. We could go back to living our lives together. She wanted to tell me that she would protect me well from now on. She wouldn't let me suffer any more hurt. However, just as Bai Ningbing was about to burst from the crowd, two men in green military uniforms suddenly blocked her path. Pardon me, you are not allowed inside. One of them reached out to stop her, his tone polite but firm. Bai Ningbing completely ignored him. She tried to brush his hand away, shouting with desperate urgency, "Get out of the way. I want to see Fang Yuan. I am his wife." The two soldiers froze for a moment, exchanging a silent look. Their eyes were filled with skepticism. I am his wife, but not long ago their young lady had told them that I was their new master. Furthermore, the master's ex-wife had died on a mission long ago. Even if she wanted to claim a relationship, she shouldn't bring a dead person into it. Immediately one of the guards turned back and looked straight at Bai Ningbing. There was a hint of warning in his voice. "I'm sorry, but you still cannot enter. If you continue to cause trouble, we will be forced to escort you away." Bai Ningbing's expression darkened instantly. She had never been rejected repeatedly like this. In the past she would have flown into a rage. But this wasn't the Bai house, nor was it Yuncheng. No matter what, she had to endure it. With that thought, Bai Ningbing clenched her fists and took a deep breath. "I truly know Fang Yuan. Could you please understand me for a moment? Please just give Fang Yuan a message. Tell him that Bai Ningbing wants to see him." By the end of her sentence, Bai Ningbing's tone carried an undeniable humility and desperation. But the two guards remained as unmoving as before, like a wall of ice, blocking her from the grand entrance of the venue. The commotion began to draw the attention of the surrounding guests. People began to whisper and gossip. Some of them even recognized Bai Ningbing. After all the scandal of the Bai family's youngest daughter posing as her sister to seduce her brother-in-law had been a sensation for a long time. It had even made the front pages of many newspapers and had been featured on the television news. It had reached the point where even the island residents had heard of it. Although I hadn't been on the island for long, it was enough for them to understand my character. To think that such a sensible and kind person had been treated that way by Bai Ningbing. The honest islanders were suddenly filled with rage. They all expressed their indignation on my behalf. How does this kind of person still have the face to come look for Comrade Fang? What bad luck for a wedding day. To run into someone like this. The more they spoke, the angrier they became. Finally, someone couldn't hold back anymore and struck. A strong gust of wind seemed to hit Bai Ningbing. Before she could even react, someone punched her directly in the face. If it had been the Bai Ningbing of the past, she could have easily dodged that punch. But now, exhausted from recent events and her relentless search for me, she didn't have her old strength. Caught completely off guard, Bai Ningbing was punched to the ground. Before she could even regain her senses, everyone swarmed over at once and began to punch and kick her relentlessly. Under the rain of heavy kicks, Bai Ningbing could almost hear her own bones cracking. Only after they had vented their anger did they let her go. Bai Ningbing lay sprawled on the ground motionless. A long while later, she managed with great difficulty to raise her arm, to wipe the blood from the corner of her mouth, so as not to disturb the wedding inside. A few burly men stepped out from the crowd. While dragging Bai Ningbing away, they prepared to toss her out. Get out of our sight. Don't you dare come bothering Comrade Fang ever again. If you ever show your face here again, every time we see you, we'll beat you up. Tonight the island was met with a heavy rain shower. A thunderclap roared, accompanied by lightning that slashed across the sky. The echoing boom made the window panes rattle violently. Subaijo pulled me closer into her embrace, covering my ears with both of her hands. Waiting until the person in her arms had fallen sound asleep again, she finally released her hands gently. She turned and climbed out of bed, threw on an outer coat, and left the room. The moment she stepped out the main gate with an umbrella, she saw a figure standing in the rain not far away. Subaiju's brows furrowed slightly. A flicker of surprise passed through her eyes. She hadn't expected that even this late, Bai Ningbing still hadn't left. After the wedding ceremony ended today, her father's 2 guards had sought her out privately. They told her a woman claiming to be my wife kept trying to force her way in to see me. Subaiju immediately thought of Bai Ningbing. According to what I had told her, even if Bai Ningbing wanted to search for someone, it shouldn't have been for a few more months. The fact that she was already here could only mean something had happened at the Bai house that forced Bai Ningbing to reveal herself sooner than expected. Initially, Subaijo didn't care much. I would certainly never go back to someone like that. If Bai Ningbing had any sense, she would have just disappeared quietly from our sight. But no one could have guessed that Bai Ningbing would stand before our door for so long. Right now, Subaiju had just discovered she was pregnant, and our love was only just beginning. She didn't want me to be troubled by these trivial matters. Thinking of this, she quickened her steps, walking toward the woman standing in the middle of the downpour. Outside the Su family residence, Bai Ningbing stood motionless in the torrential rain. Her body was soaked from head to toe, strands of tangled hair clinging to her cheeks. A freezing cold spread from her back, enveloping her entire body. The chill that took over made her tremble uncontrollably, but Bai Ningbing didn't seem to feel it at all. Her eyes were fixed on the tightly shut iron gate in front of her. It had been a whole entire day. Since the moment the wedding ended until now, she had been keeping watch outside the Su house. She just wanted to ask me one thing. Why did I leave her so suddenly without a single word of warning? Why did I suddenly go and marry someone else? She had clearly said it, that once the child was born, she would return to my side, and we would rebuild our lives together. Why couldn't I have just been patient and waited a little longer? Just as Bai Ningbing's mind was in total turmoil, the shut iron gate was suddenly opened from the inside. A figure holding an umbrella slowly walked toward her. Instantly, Bai Ningbing's lifeless eyes lit up. She couldn't wait for the person to arrive, but rushed straight toward them instead. Fang Yuan! But as the large black umbrella was moved aside, it revealed the face of a strange woman. Crack! Another flash of lightning slit the sky, briefly illuminating the dark expanse. This time, Bai Ningbing finally saw clearly. So it's you, the woman who stole my Fang Yuan. At this very moment, Bai Ningbing finally remembered who the woman before her was. Long ago, shortly after the news of her sacrifice had spread, matchmakers had come to my house to propose on her behalf. Among them was a matchmaker who had persistently visited the house 7 times. No matter how she was driven away, she wouldn't leave, because it was from that very matchmaker that she had seen the name and face of Subaijo. That's not right. Even before the matchmaker appeared, actually she had met Subaijo once for a fleeting moment. That day she went to the Su family residence to pay her respects to old Master Su. That woman hurried down from upstairs. She only gave them a slight nod. After a quick greeting, she rushed out the door. Though it was just a glimpse, Bai Ningbing could still sense it from Su Baizhou. Groundless hostility directed at her. At that time she still didn't understand. But now she finally had a sudden realization. It turns out that Su Baizhou had already set her eyes on my husband back then. You want to die? A flame of fury erupted within Bai Ningbing's heart. She swung her fist about to charge at Su Baizhou in front of her. Su Baizhou quickly leaned to the side, dodging Bai Ningbing's punch. Immediately after, she landed a direct punch right on her face. So different from the gentle and loving appearance she shows before me. At this moment Su Baizhou was incredibly cold and calm. Her eyebrows were furrowed tightly. Her dark eyes narrowed dangerously. If Bai Ningbing chose to treat her this way, then she didn't need to be polite anymore. The black umbrella fell onto the muddy ground, sending mud splashing everywhere. Lightning strikes repeatedly sliced across the sky. The two of them were like two madmen, relentlessly exchanging punches and kicks. But it was mostly Su Baizhou one-sidedly overpowering Bai Ningbing. After only a few moves, Bai Ningbing leaned against the doorframe, her face pale. White flashes of lightning repeatedly illuminated her haggard face. The bloodstains around her had been washed away by the rain. She tried to force herself up, but she couldn't move at all. Piercing pain spread through every nerve in her body. Only then did Su Baizhou pull back her hands. Taking a handkerchief out of her pocket, she calmly wiped the blood off her hands. Finally she picked up the black umbrella from the ground, wiped off the mud and opened it. Bai Ningbing, don't ever come here again. I am pregnant with his child. If anything happens to my baby, Feng Yuan will never forgive you. If you still insist on seeing him, then I'll have no choice but to call the Bai family and ask them how they raised their daughter, pregnant. Bai Ningbing, who was hanging her head, suddenly looked up. What did you just say? Who's pregnant? Whose child? Su Baizhou let out a cold snort. Of course it's Feng Yuan's child. These words were like an invisible hand, ripping open Bai Ningbing's chest. A cold wind rushed inside, freezing her entire body. She could no longer see anything. She could no longer hear anything. Even her racing heart suddenly came to a standstill. She remained frozen in place, but a violent storm was raging within her. Clearly before coming to this island, before everything was exposed, she thought that after returning to my side, she would bear me many children. That way I would no longer hate Song Jinian. But now her gaze was fixed on Su Baizhou, who was standing right in front of her. Just now she had stated clearly word for word that she was pregnant and that it was Feng Yuan's child. In an instant, Bai Ningbing felt as if her heart was being hacked into 100 pieces by someone. Her breathing became rapid and heavy. Her chest heaved violently. It seemed as if every breath brought a heart-wrenching pain. From the moment I vanished without a trace, until this very moment, she witnessed with her own eyes that I had married and had a child with someone else. All of this was telling her that I truly didn't need her anymore. The lie she had woven for herself finally shattered completely at this very second. In her daze, she remembered our wedding night. That night, I had told her with absolute seriousness that if she ever betrayed me, I would definitely leave her forever. At that time she was too arrogant about the love I had for her, so she treated my vow as a joke, laughing it off. That's why she deceived herself time and time again, claiming the situation between her and Song Jinian was due to hidden hardship, that she did it for her older sister, so her brother-in-law could continue living, so that their Bai family could have an heir for her sister. That's why she did it. She temporarily sacrificed our small family for the sake of that extended family. Waiting until everything was over, she would tell me the whole truth. Since I was such a reasonable person, I would surely understand her. But now everyone was telling her that she was wrong. Wrong to an irredeemable extent. A self-mocking laugh escaped Bai Ningbing's lips, but it was quickly drowned out by the pouring rain. Su Baizhou, standing opposite, didn't want to bother with such a person anymore. She decisively turned her back and went inside. The cold iron gate slammed shut right in front of Bai Ningbing. She completely collapsed, sinking to the ground. Tears mingled with the raindrops. Her shoulders trembled violently, releasing a sob she had suppressed for a long time. The sound of her crying was so small amidst the rain, yet it contained boundless suffering and despair. Inside the Su residence, where Feng Yuan stayed, it was as warm as spring, completely unaffected by the freezing weather outside. Su Baizhou had just finished changing her clothes. When she pushed open the door to the room, she saw her husband having just sat up in bed, rubbing his eyes with his hand. With a sleepy face he asked where she had been. Su Baizhou's steps faltered. Thinking of the scene just now, her gaze darkened slightly. Then she pretended nothing happened and walked over. She hugged me and gave me a light kiss. I didn't go anywhere far. I just went to the harbor to buy some food for you. Hearing that, I immediately widened my eyes. I looked outside where it was raining cats and dogs. What if you catch a cold? Don't worry, my health is very good. Besides, our baby wanted to eat. As a mother, how could I refuse? With that, she gently stroked her belly. Her eyes were filled with tenderness. Mentioning the child, I also reached out, looking lovingly at her belly. I never dared to think that I would one day become a father. Back then, due to the news of Bai Ningbing's death, my health collapsed. coupled with so many incidents that happened afterward, to the point that the doctor once said, "With my physical condition it would be hard for my wife to get pregnant." Yet that 1 in a million slim chance found its way to me. As for this child that was so hard to conceive, I treasure it immensely. Because of that I rarely care about outside matters. Whatever Su Baizhou says goes. I didn't want to ask further questions either. And it was because Su Baizhou understood this personality of mine, that she kept Bai Ningbing's arrival on the island to find me a secret. She hid it completely, not revealing a single thing. She didn't want her husband to be upset by that kind of person anymore. After dinner, Su Baizhou remained constantly by my side, until I had fallen into a deep sleep. Only then did she go downstairs. Since she was pregnant, the Su and Feng families had hired many people to take care of her. Seeing her come down now, the servant standing by the window stepped forward. "Greetings, madam." Su Baizhou nodded slightly and asked, "Is she still there?" The servant replied quickly, "She has been standing there for almost the entire night." Su Baizhou gave a faint smile. "No need to bother with her anymore. Whatever happens to her has nothing to do with us." After saying that, she instructed the servant, "I've been having some morning sickness lately. Try to cook something light. Don't make it too greasy. Take the salted meat and spring bamboo shoots the Feng family sent over the other day. Just stew them into a soup." "Yes, madam." After the servant left, Su Baizhou walked over to the desk phone, dialed a number. "Hello, please connect me to the Bai residence." "Thank you." Although Su Baizhou no longer paid attention to Bai Ningbing, I couldn't just hide in the house forever. Sooner or later I would have to go out for a walk or to work. Therefore, to keep Bai Ningbing from causing further trouble, she decided to call the Bai family, requesting they come and take Bai Ningbing back. 1 month at the latest. Otherwise I will be forced to use strong measures to drive her away. As she spoke these words, a flash of determination appeared in Su Baizhou's eyes. It was another rainy and windy night. Bai Ningbing couldn't even remember which day it was that she had been standing outside the Su residence. She felt clearly that her body was reaching its breaking point, but as before she had not yet been able to see me. The rain grew heavier and heavier. The lights in the Su residence also began to go out. When the last lamp was extinguished, the hope in Bai Ningbing's eyes also completely died out. She knew today was another day of hopeless waiting. Her heart at this moment felt as if it had been hollowed out, leaving only despair and freezing cold to surround her. Su Baizhou's words echoed in her ears once again. But she truly was not resigned. She and I once loved each other so deeply. I had even planned to commit suicide when I heard she had died. And yet now I didn't care to meet her even once. A bitter smile appeared on Bai Ningbing's lips. She looked up at the pitch-black sky. The rain lashed directly at her face, as if even the heavens were mocking her. With a thud, unable to hold on any longer, her eyes went dark. Her entire body collapsed to the ground. The rain continued to pour relentlessly, as if wanting to drown both her and me in this cold space of the world. In her delirium she vaguely heard someone calling her name with concern. Ningbing. In a hospital room somewhere, Bai Ningbing was unconscious with a high fever. She began to dream. In the dream was my image, the person she hadn't seen for a long time. I was just like before, holding her in my arms, gently calling her name. But just as she was about to look up and kiss me, my expression in that embrace suddenly changed, decisively pushing her away, and then hugging another woman. No matter how desperately she pleaded, I didn't even care to look at her anymore. "Bai Ningbing, you were the one who betrayed me first. So I don't need you anymore." I walked away heartlessly, without a single backward glance. "Don't go." Bai Ningbing suddenly snapped her eyes open. She screamed. Her hands flailed about, searching around frantically. Then her hand touched something soft. In her delirium she thought it was me. Her face suddenly filled with joy. She hurried to embrace that person, kissing and pleading. "Don't go. Don't leave me. I'm begging you." Song Jinian, after several days of traveling here, could not have imagined that the scene of him and Bai Ningbing reuniting would be like this. Song Jinian had a hard time escaping his mother's living hell. To have a good life, if forced to return to those dark days, had rather just die. He thought so, and he truly intended to do it. His dignity was completely gone. His mother didn't want him. Bai Ningbing didn't care about him either, so what was the point of living? What is the use of living in this world? However, just as Song Jinian was about to end his life, Mother Bai suddenly rushed in, used all her strength to stop him. She said the Bai family already owed him too much. If they pushed him to the edge, then the Bai family would have no face to show anyone. So Mother Bai took it upon herself to decide to marry Bai Ningbing to him. But Bai Ningbing opposed it very fiercely. In order to make them give up entirely, she ran straight to the island to find me and beg for reconciliation. Mother Bai didn't give up either. She immediately bought a boat ticket for Song Jinian to the island. Having prepared all the necessary papers, she told him that as long as he could bring Bai Ningbing back, they would invite officials from the Civil Affairs Bureau to the house to register their marriage immediately. If it were before, Song Jinian certainly would never have accepted. But he and Bai Ningbing had lived as husband and wife for nearly 2 years. Not only was his body too familiar with her, but even his heart had begun to develop feelings. Besides, his reputation was already ruined. It was better to just marry and have children with her. At least his future life would be secured. Therefore Song Jinian arrived. He had prepared himself mentally for all of Bai Ningbing's reactions upon seeing him, but the only thing he didn't expect was that as soon as they met, she would become so passionate with him. She held him tightly, kissing him madly, begging him not to abandon her. That fervor made Song Jinian dazed for a moment. He thought they had returned to the passionate days of the last 2 years. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but blush with embarrassment. He looked up and put his arms around her neck, planning to give her a deep kiss. But in the next second, Bai Ningbing suddenly called out the name of another man. Feng Yuan, don't go. I'm begging you. Just hearing the 2 words Feng Yuan was like a bucket of cold water poured over Song Jinian's head, freezing both his heart and his body. In an instant, an unspeakable feeling of humiliation and resentment surged within him. He had considered himself hers. Why was she still calling out another man's name? The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. He could no longer hold it back. Summoning an extraordinary strength, he shoved Bai Ningbing away. Bai Ningbing, look closely and see who I really am. Suddenly being pushed away, she didn't immediately regain her senses and tried once again to grab Song Jinian's hand. Feng Yuan, can you stop being angry? Please, I can explain everything to you. Bai Ningbing screamed again in desperation. This time Bai Ningbing finally came to her senses. She shook her head, and finally saw clearly who was in front of her. In a mere split second, the passion and madness on her face receded like the tide, leaving only a frightening coldness. Why is it you? Hearing Bai Ningbing's distant and cold tone, Song Jinian couldn't help but feel a pang of sorrow. He clenched his fists. Finally he decided to tell her every detail of Mother Bai's intentions. As soon as she heard Mother Bai wanted her to marry Song Jinian, Bai Ningbing's face immediately darkened. There was not a hint of warmth in her eyes. Her voice was devoid of emotion. And you? Do you also really want to marry me? Song Jinian looked at the face that was identical to his late wife's. As if possessed, he nodded. Years ago he agreed to marry Bai Ningbing's sister largely because he had fallen in love with this face. Even if Bai Ningbing didn't love him, as long as he had this face by his side, and had children who looked like her, then he wouldn't be losing out. But he couldn't just say it bluntly like that. I already told you, with my current reputation, no one else would want me. If I don't marry you, who else can I marry? Hearing the answer she expected, Bai Ningbing only felt exhausted. She had known from the start that giving Song Jinian emotional support, so he would keep living, and so her sister could rest in peace by pretending to be her sister and bear his child would lead to all this trouble. Then no matter what, she would never have done it. She leaned against the headboard, closed her eyes and rubbed her temples. Her voice was full of helplessness. But you clearly know I don't love you. And I will never marry you. All my past care for you was entirely for my sister's sake. Furthermore, I came to this island to win back Feng Yuan, to return to being husband and wife with him, ever since I entered her life. In Bai Ningbing's eyes there was no room for anyone else. Hearing Bai Ningbing say that, Song Jinian only found it ironic. Since setting foot on the island, he had taken the trouble to find out about my situation. Now Feng Yuan is not only married to Su Baizu, but his wife is also pregnant. Their love is so deep they are inseparable like a body and its shadow. No one can ever drive a wedge between them. To say he wasn't jealous would be a lie, but Song Jinian had no strength left to be jealous of me. His urgent task now was to hold on tight to Bai Ningbing. So he decided to pour cold water on her dreams. Stop dreaming, you will never be able to win him back. Besides, speaking of being husband and wife, the time you and I spent together is even longer than the time you were his wife. Isn't that true? When Bai Ningbing and I were still newlyweds, she had to go on a mission far away for a long time. Not long after that incident occurred. After returning, she had always cared for him. Furthermore, they even had a child together. Bai Ningbing, no man would ever want to return to someone like you. Except for me. Unsure which words touched her sore spot, Bai Ningbing, who was calm, suddenly flew into a rage. She grabbed an object nearby and threw it directly at Song Jinian. Enough, get the hell out. On the other side, I was completely unaware of the situation between Bai Ningbing and Song Jinian. Now, after being devotedly cared for by Su Baizhou, my health has improved significantly. After more than a month of being stuck inside, I can finally go out for a walk and breathe some fresh air. So I impulsively insisted that Su Baizhou go with me into town to visit the newly opened shopping mall to prepare some clothes and formula for the little angel about to be born. Since the shopping mall wasn't too far away, the two of us didn't drive, but walked leisurely along the trail down the mountain. Along the way I was like a little bird just released from its cage, peering here and there with curiosity. Su Baizhou didn't stop me, but only followed quietly behind. To ensure my safety, once inside the shopping mall, we went straight to the second floor to the mother and baby store. Since we didn't know if the baby was a boy or a girl, we bought 2 sets of everything. But when the two of us brought a pile of items to the checkout, the salesperson informed us that someone had already paid the entire bill for us. Su Baizhu and I looked at each other. Both of us were filled with confusion. We hadn't helped anyone lately, and no one would be so idle as to spend a fortune on us like that. So at first I thought the salesperson was joking, but when she showed us the receipt, we were shocked to realize it was the truth. Initially the two of us thought it was just a coincidence. Perhaps a friend had happened to see us, but because it wasn't convenient to greet us, they used this way to express their kindness, thinking that if there was a chance later, and we found out who it was, we would thank them in person, but unexpectedly at every subsequent location. Once we finished shopping, the same situation occurred. It kept continuing like that, making me begin to feel uneasy. I looked at Su Baizhou awkwardly. Many negative thoughts flashed through my mind. What if someone is plotting against us? Contrary to my fears, Su Baizhou appeared incredibly calm. Connecting the events together, she seemed to have guessed who was behind it. Furthermore, she had just glimpsed a familiar silhouette, confirming her suspicion even more. With that thought, she gently comforted me and led me into a newly opened restaurant for a meal. While waiting for the food to be served, Su Baizhou made up an excuse about being busy, telling me to go ahead and eat. She'd be right back. In a deserted small alley, Su Baizhou landed a powerful kick that sent Bai Ningbing tumbling. Her face was icy cold. A fire of anger burned in her deep black eyes. It really is you. Bai Ningbing, though she hadn't fully recovered, had escaped the hospital on her own. After taking just one kick, she no longer had the strength to get up from the ground. But even in such a pathetic state, her face still showed a firm resolve not to give up. So what if it's me? I already said. Feng Yuan is my husband. A thief like you can never steal him away. It was precisely because she wanted to win me back soon that Bai Ningbing secretly left the hospital when no one was looking. She walked while asking for directions everywhere. Finally, she found me, the person she always longed for, and Su Baizhou standing right next to me. Her bulging pregnant belly was like a sharp knife, carving up Bai Ningbing's heart. The bitterness rushed to her throat and spread throughout her mouth. But Bai Ningbing stubbornly swallowed that bitterness back down. After all, she was the one who had a child with someone else first. If she was willing to accept the child of me and another person, then she would also raise that child as if it were her own. But the prerequisite was that I had to be willing to go with her. Therefore, in order to convince me, she came up with this despicable method, which was to find a way to chase Su Baizhou away. But before she could even make a move, Su Baizhou, who had long ago discovered everything, found her first. Su Baizhou. I never imagined Bai Ningbing could be so thick-skinned. She didn't even bother wasting any more words on that woman, and prepared to land a heavy punch. But at that very moment, a terrifying explosion thundered in the distance. Su Baizhu's fist froze in midair, stiff with shock. Then she turned her head in utter horror. Before her eyes, the restaurant where I was dining was engulfed in flames. Pitch black smoke like a giant hand enveloped the entire building. Feng Yuan. A heart-wrenching scream tore from her throat. She rushed like a mad woman toward the burning restaurant. She had no idea that behind her Bai Ningbing's face was also deathly pale. She struggled to pick herself up from the ground, and also gave chase in that direction. Under the sky glowing bright red from the fire, amidst the mournful weeping of the crowd, were terrified piercing screams. The chaotic sounds gave Su Baizhou a splitting headache. Infinite regret swirled through her mind and body. She immediately raised her hand, and slapped herself hard twice in pain. If she had known, she would have never left me alone. Nothing was allowed to happen to me. The moment she thought of that, she seemed to have gone mad. She intended to throw herself into that vast sea of fire. Another violent explosion rang out. Bricks and debris flew in all directions. They sprayed everywhere sharp as sword blades. Comrade, please calm down. It's very dangerous inside. Going in now is suicide. We have already called the police. Rescue forces will be here shortly. The people around her saw that Su Baizhou didn't seem to care about her life anymore, and kept trying to rush straight into the fire. They were terrified and hurriedly ran over, and did their best to stop her. Let me go. My husband is still in there. His health is not good. Su Baizhou's eyes were bloodshot from pain and fear. She ignored everything to struggle out of the people's grip. At this moment her mind was completely blank. There was only one thought in her heart. I was still trapped in there. She absolutely could not let anything happen to me. Not knowing where she got such extraordinary strength, she suddenly broke free from those around her, and intended to plunge straight into the savage sea of fire. At that exact moment another earth-shattering explosion occurred. The terrible pressure from the explosion knocked everyone present there to the ground. The scene once again became extremely chaotic. But right in that moment of chaos, a figure silently rushed into the fire from the other side. Bai Ningbing followed closely behind. Having just heard that I was still trapped in the fire, she immediately stopped caring about her own life. Without a moment's hesitation she threw herself into the middle of the vast sea of fire. Though she had some experience rescuing people from fires, the flames in the restaurant were too violent now. Amidst the black smoke, figures were fleeing, covering their noses and weeping. The sound of choking coughs echoed everywhere without end. Figures blackened by smoke and fire, with sparks still clinging to their clothes, were running for their lives amidst desperate cries. As for Bai Ningbing, since she hadn't prepared any protective measures, Songs of fire quickly formed a ring and closed in on her. Right now beneath her feet were scorching hot falling embers. Behind her tongues of fire were chasing closely, not letting go. The blistering hot air slammed into her face as powerfully as a surging wave. It felt like being thrown into a level of endless terrifying hell. Thick smoke smelling of burning filled her nose, and mouth creeping into her respiratory tract, making her choke and gasp, her breathing becoming extremely difficult. Her tears flowed incessantly from the stinging smoke. Her head began to spin and her vision darkened in waves. No one knew how much time had passed. Finally she saw a familiar figure, lying curled up on the ground, but completely motionless. Her heart, which had just sparked a bit of hope, suddenly tightened with fear. Bai Ningbing didn't care about anything else and intended to rush over there immediately. Suddenly a scorched section of the ceiling collapsed and crashed toward that figure. Fang Yuan. Bai Ningbing rushed over in a panic. She used her own body to shield that person. A moment later that heavy ceiling fragment slammed hard onto her back. Instantly Bai Ningbing's vision went black. She completely sank into darkness and lost consciousness. At the hospital, Song Jinian looked at the woman lying on the hospital bed, her entire body wrapped in white bandages. His eyes showed extremely complex emotions. He knew very well that Bai Ningbing still loved me deeply. But he couldn't believe she could love so obsessively. Loving to the point that to hold on to me. She endured the pain and took her unhealed body to escape from the hospital, loving to the point of not caring about her own life, only to rush into that terrifying sea of fire just to save me. Even though the person she saved was actually just someone whose back looked a bit like mine. The more Song Jinian thought about it, the tighter his hands clenched together. Even though his nails dug deep into his palms, causing sharp pain, tearing the flesh, making drops of blood trickle out, he still didn't feel any pain. He just stood there staring intently at Bai Ningbing without looking away. Suddenly he remembered the letter that the Bai family mother had sent through someone not long ago. The message in the letter was that she worried he couldn't bring Bai Ningbing back alone. So the Bai family would also soon send someone to support him. However, the Bai family mother hoped that before their people reached the island, she and Song Jinian could conceive once more. That way their chances of officially and properly marrying would be higher. Thinking up to this point, Song Jinian instinctively reached into his pocket. Inside was exactly the medicine the Bai family mother had enclosed with the letter. As for when and where to use that medicine, Song Jinian was the one who understood better than anyone else. He had even made a plan, and was ready to use it. Bai Ningbing, you were the one who betrayed me and wronged me first. So don't blame me for having to treat you like this. Bai Ningbing had been lying comatose and motionless for a whole week. However, the first thing she did upon waking up wasn't asking Song Jinian, who was in front of her, how long he had been keeping watch by her side. Instead, it was hurriedly asking about my situation. When she learned that the person she had risked her life to save wasn't me, and that I had escaped safely beforehand, at first she was completely stunned. But then she breathed a sigh of relief, leaning back on the bed as if a weight had been lifted. Even a smile full of relief and fortune appeared on the corner of her lips. That smile was like thorns stabbing Song Jinian's eyes, making him extremely uncomfortable. It only reinforced his determination to carry out his dark intentions. The moment she heard that I was also being treated at this very hospital, Bai Ningbing completely ignored the painful wounds on her body. She struggled out of bed, determined to find me at all costs. This time Song Jinian no longer exerted himself to stop her. He just silently stood there watching her back as she faded into the distance. But in his mind the entire horrifying scene of that day's fire flashed. Hearing that Bai Ningbing had recklessly charged into the fierce fire alone, with the sole purpose of saving me. When he learned that Song Jinian was the one who felt the most pain and humiliation. By the time he breathlessly reached the fire scene, Bai Ningbing had already plunged inside long ago. He was extremely impatient and worried. He ran everywhere looking for rescue forces to help. However, he suddenly discovered in a corner not far away, me, the one who was supposed to be trapped in that fire, was being held tightly and protected in Su Baijiao's arms. They were sharing kisses and sighs of relief. After a moment of stunned amazement, a surge of rage and indescribable sorrow suddenly rose in his heart. If Bai Ningbing knew that the person she was risking her life to save had actually escaped danger long ago, and was currently in the tender embrace of another woman, then he didn't know how crushed she would feel. Just as he intended to approach them, Su Baijiao saw him first. After she comforted me and put me safely in the car, she turned and walked straight toward him, and proactively proposed a collaboration. Their common goal was to make Bai Ningbing completely give up on me, and Song Jinian quickly agreed. The first step of the plan was to let Bai Ningbing hear cold, heartless words from my own mouth, that I would never return to her ever again. As expected, when Bai Ningbing struggled in her wheelchair to my hospital room door, at the very moment she intended to reach out and knock, she heard Su Baijiao's voice inside mentioning the name Fang Yuan. I have something I really want to tell you. It's about Bai Ningbing. Immediately Bai Ningbing, standing outside the door, suddenly felt suffocated. Even her outstretched hand froze stiff in the air. She hadn't dared to appear before me for a very long time. She wondered what my attitude toward her would be at this moment. Was it ultimate disgust or something else? However, my voice coming from behind the door was strangely calm. Why mention her for no reason? Just those few short words. were enough to make her heart tremble with pain. A bone-deep pain quickly spread throughout her body. Now I didn't even want her name mentioned. The conversation inside the hospital room continued just like that. My tone from beginning to end remained just as cold and indifferent, as if I were telling the story of some stranger. I already said it. From the moment I was willing to marry you, that person no longer has anything to do with me. Furthermore, as far as I'm concerned, Bai Ningbing, she already died in that mission years ago. Everything that happened later, just consider it karmic retribution for my blindness. Now my eyes are clearer. I will never worry about anything related to her again. Now I only want to live these peaceful days with you. So you don't hate her anymore. Why would I bother holding a grudge against someone who is already dead? Those few callous words caused Bai Ningbing's already fragile heart to completely collapse and shatter. It fell to the ground, shattering into 100,000 tiny pieces. No matter how hard she tried, it could never be mended. She closed her eyes tight, her face pale without a drop of blood. Her hands tightly interlaced as she sat in the wheelchair. Due to using too much force, made her white knuckles stand out clearly. In the pitch-black room, the pungent smell of alcohol rose to a suffocating level. Bai Ningbing was sitting slumped on the cold floor. Her eyes were dull and unfocused from the alcohol. She kept swaying, holding a glass of wine unsteadily. At her feet were empty wine bottles scattered everywhere. She just kept chugging wine into her mouth, while aimlessly muttering my name in vain. In her eyes was a reflection of the ultimate bitter regret. Tears mixed with the acrid taste of wine flowed down her throat. That bitterness felt like thousands of needles stabbing and shredding her body. It made her suffer so much she couldn't even breathe. She no longer had the strength to resist anymore. Her entire body collapsed onto the floor. At the very moment Bai Ningbing fell, the wine bottles shattered to pieces under her weight. Wine splashed everywhere. That liquid blurred her eyes. In her drunken hallucinations, she faintly saw my figure appear. I was slowly pushing open the door and entering, and walking with gentle steps toward her. As if we were returning to our wedding day, I tenderly called her name, and reached out to pull her into a tight embrace. She thought she was immersed in a dream, so she decided to let herself indulge her emotions one last time. She hurriedly pulled me into her warm embrace, and placed a burning kiss on my lips, but in her mouth only an unending bitterness remained. Her mind was dull and chaotic as the alcohol completely took over. Bai Ningbing thought I was crying in pain. She frantically placed her lips on the corners of my eyes, to kiss away those sorrowful tears, and softly soothed me, telling me not to cry anymore. In the chilly night, raindrops began to patter against the porch. The night wind lightly blew past. The sound of rain became heavier and noisier with each moment. Waking from her stupor, Bai Ningbing felt a splitting headache. She struggled to get up, barely managing to open her eyes, only to be shocked to find herself in the arms of a man both strange and familiar. Her bare shoulders were covered in suggestive dark red marks. One look was enough to know something terrible had happened last night. Instantly, Bai Ningbing's eyes widened in horror. In a moment, she completely lost her composure. At that exact moment, the man holding her slowly raised his head. He gave her a knowing, cryptic smile. Ningbing. The morning that was supposed to be peaceful suddenly became extremely chaotic. Bai Ningbing could never have imagined, even in a dream, that one day she would be trapped by this despicable Song Jinian. While the flames of anger were rising fiercely, infinite sorrow also surged within her heart. Previously she stayed with Song Jinian, only to fulfill the final wish of her deceased sister, which was to leave Song Jinian with a child. But now, as she was exerting all her effort to win me back, having relations with Song Jinian now meant the last chance between her and me was completely finished. I am such a person who values purity. How could I accept a woman who has been defiled by another man? She could no longer maintain her usual calm appearance. She rushed over and squeezed Song Jinian's neck tightly. You want to die, don't you? But the harder she squeezed, the more refreshing and crazed Song Jinian's laughter became, until Bai Ningbing felt extreme disgust. She forcefully knocked him to the ground. Only then did he stop laughing. He coughed a few times, then threw her a cold look. He looked up, staring directly at her. Bai Ningbing, wake up. Don't dream in broad daylight anymore. Since you took it upon yourself to fake your death and play your sister to be intimate with me, then you and he are completely over. There's not even a shred of hope left. Song Jinian's eyes were filled with unwillingness, madness, and utter ruthlessness. If you don't agree to come back with me and register the marriage, then I will publicize all our steamy photos for the whole world to see. So that very Fang Yuan can see exactly how you were clinging to me. Enough! You really are a madman. Bai Ningbing couldn't control herself and delivered a fiery slap to his face. In her heart she was filled with late regret. If she had known she would one day be in such a humiliating situation, then she would have never softened her heart back then. Only to help this bastard Song Jinian. Bai Ningbing, I am warning you for the last time. If we don't register our marriage within the next 3 days, then those photos will be immediately sent to him by my people. At that point he will also be implicated because of you, and endure all the insults from public opinion, and his child as well. A cruel look flashed in Song Jinian's eyes. So you'd better learn to accept your fate. Just like him, you must bow your head and accept your lot. Bai Ningbing stared at him with a resentful look. She stood in silence, not moving at all. Her mind was frantically racking for a way out of this mess. but ironically she realized she was at a total dead end with no way back. From the moment she stood outside the hospital room and heard my heartless words, the last bit of affection between her and me officially ended without a trace. Now if Song Jinian actually carried out that threat, then I would surely cut all contact with her forever. I had suffered enough disappointment and hurt because of her. This absolutely could not be allowed to go any further. If that's how it is, why couldn't she notice his murderous gaze directed at her? Song Jinian whispered a malicious reminder. Don't forget where your parents are. Her tightly clenched hands suddenly went limp. Bai Ningbing's once proud shoulders now completely slumped, worn out. A smug smile of satisfaction appeared on Song Jinian's lips. He well understood that Bai Ningbing had completely surrendered and accepted the compromise. 3 days later, the Bai family people personally came to the island to take her and Song Jinian back, and witnessing the scene of them hand in hand full of affection, along with the bright red marriage certificate in Song Jinian's hand, the members of the Bai family looked at each other meaningfully. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief as if a burden had just been lifted. The ship's horn blew, signaling the time of departure. Pitch black smoke began to curl up from the ship's funnel. Bai Ningbing stood quietly alone on the side of the boat. She gently toyed with the wedding ring in her palm. In her eyes now only eternal bitterness remained. Remembering that year when she and I held our wedding, she had to save half a year's salary just to have this ring custom made for me. The moment she placed the ring on my hand, the normally iron-hearted Bai Ningbing burst into tears like a child. At that time she poured so many sweet words of love into my ears, and made so many vows of 100 years together. However, after all, she was the one who personally broke all those vows. Even the minimum trust between husband and wife was heartlessly trampled by her. So her tragic end today is also a well-deserved price. Finally she swung her arm and threw the wedding ring into the vast ocean. She wanted to discard the entire marriage she had destroyed with her own hands, and let it sink deep into the cold seafloor forever. Fang Yuan. Farewell, may we never meet each other ever again. After hearing the news that Bai Ningbing and Song Jinian had married and left, Su Baizhu finally broke into a relieved smile after many days of tension. Finally she had driven her away once and for all. From now on no one would dare to compete for her husband anymore. Just thinking about that, she rushed over and showered my face with kisses while I was still deep in sleep. That action startled me and I gave her a few gentle pats. What's gotten into you? Since the day she became pregnant, Su Baiju's temperament suddenly became strange and unpredictable. Despite my mild reproach, she just giggled mischievously. It's nothing, honey. It's just that the annoying flies have finally been chased away. I gave her a small helpless glare, then wrapped my arms around her and closed my eyes to sleep again. However, a warm smile faintly appeared on my lips. In fact, I had long suspected that Su Baizhou was hiding something from me, and it certainly had an intimate connection to Bai Ningbing. Right at my wedding to Su Baizhou that day, I had seen Bai Ningbing's figure frantically rushing toward me, but in my heart I had completely cast that woman out of my life. Therefore I didn't care or pay any attention to her anymore. Even regarding Su Baizhou, taking advantage of while I was asleep to go settle the troubles related to Bai Ningbing. In truth, I was fully aware of all her actions, even the fact that Bai Ningbing, when she left me a letter of apology full of remorse. But it was later heartlessly torn to shreds by her. But honestly, I didn't feel bothered in the slightest, because I truly love this woman. So I understand that everything Su Baizhou did was only to protect the peace of me and our unborn child. Because in my heart Bai Ningbing had long since become a stranger. So whether she lives or dies, it no longer has any bearing on my life. Now I only want to wholeheartedly cherish the woman before me, and join her in caring for our little family and raising our child well. Just that much is more than enough for me. I will absolutely not ask for anything more distant than that. 7 months later, the first daughter of Su Baizhou and me was officially born. Perhaps because the arrival of this tiny soul was so miraculous, we decided to name her Tianai, meaning that she is the sincere love bestowed upon us by heaven. From the moment of her birth she received countless waves of love from everyone. On the day of our daughter's full-month celebration, both sets of parents didn't mind the long distance and traveled to the island to join the joy. Alongside valuable gifts there was a letter sent with them. My mother looked at her daughter-in-law and let out a heavy sigh. She said, "I didn't actually want to give this letter to you." But the Bai family mother kept crying and begging me incessantly. "You also understand Fang Yuan's character. I don't want to make him worry or feel more upset. Take a quick look at this letter, then go and burn it. Absolutely do not tell Fang Yuan about this." After the corrupt affairs about Bai Ningbing faking her death to deceive others were exposed, the Fang family officially cut off and ended all relations with the Bai family. Reuniting now, everything around seems to have changed completely. Su Baizhou nodded slightly to show she understood. She took the letter from her mother-in-law's hand, then silently stepped to a hidden corner to read it. She thought this was another sentimental letter Bai Ningbing wrote to me, but she was surprised that the content was filled with sincere apologies. The letter said that since returning, Bai Ningbing had been continuously besieged by nightmares. She kept dreaming of returning to that fateful day when her sister died. She tried to change her fate 1,000 times in her dreams, but all those efforts were in vain and filled with despair. Under the constant torment of lingering nightmares, her mind gradually became unstable, and she developed mental illness. she began to show signs of madness, constantly calling my name whenever she saw Song Jinian. At first Song Jinian tried to endure it, thinking they had a child together. He told himself he could endure everything for the sake of the family. However, the tipping point was when Bai Ningbing forced Song Jinian's son to call my photo in the frame father. At this point Song Jinian truly went mad from humiliation. During a violent struggle between the two, both were extremely seriously injured. Bai Ningbing broke her legs and was permanently paralyzed from the waist down. As for Song Jinian, his eyes could no longer see the light. He also fell into a state of psychosis and was no longer lucid. The poor child, out of extreme fear, had become a mute. Later it was also discovered that the little girl suffered from a congenital heart defect, forcing her to live entirely dependent on medication from a young age. Bai Ningbing wrote this letter, absolutely not to beg for my pity, but from the heart she wanted to send me a late apology. She admitted she was wrong and had greatly wronged me. She didn't even dare to imagine receiving my forgiveness. She only hoped that from now on I would always be safe and happy, and prayed that all the pain and illness in the world would fall upon her instead. Su Baizhu curled her lip, letting out a cold, contemptuous sound. She casually tossed the letter into the flickering fire burning beside her. In the distance I was holding our little daughter and smiling, waving at her. Su Baizhu smiled brightly and walked quickly toward us. She hugged both me and our daughter, whispering softly in my ear, "Fang Yuan, I feel so incredibly lucky to have you and our daughter in my life." I let out a warm, satisfied smile, then gently held her soft hands. "Me too. I'm so lucky that fate brought me to you and our daughter."